Welcome, everybody, to a slightly delayed Xbox 2 podcast. We are starting 2 hours later than normal because today was Christmas for Blizzard fans. It was Christmas for the likes of the one and only Jez Corden, Windows Central, who is obviously here with me as always. How's it going, buddy? How many times did you cry today?
I teared up, man.
Yeah?
I did tear up.
You did?
There's something special about
legit tears streaming down your face?
Legit, not streamed down my face, but
okay.
I legit teared up. Today's BlizzCon was special, I think. It was particularly special. But we'll get into it in a bit.
Yeah, so Jez, as you can tell, crying. He's a little bit emotional over the 2.5 hours of BlizzCon that happened today. And, I figured I didn't want to be live when BlizzCon keynote was on. Plus, I knew Jez wanted to watch it deep down. Deep down, he's been waiting for this for a long time. He was very upset that you weren't actually at Anaheim for the event, right? You're just kind of...
Yeah, I was trying to price it up, but I really want to get laser eye surgery in December. And also, Iceland went way over budget. And I was just like, well, I could go, but then I'd have literally no money left. So I kind of need at least some money in the bank. So I thought, like, I'll skip it this year, but I'm probably gonna go next year if the stars align.
Yeah, next year that might actually have something for Xbox fans to tune in and watch, unlike this year, huh?
I didn't know what Phil was gonna say.
Anyways, I'm Randall419.
I enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, Jez, that'd be like, I don't know, me watching a Wheel of Time book stream and being like, well, I liked it. Well, yeah, no shit. You love Blizzard. Of course you're going to like it. You know what I mean? But anyways.
Whatever.
I'm Randall419, the man with the million, with a episode 290 of the Xbox 2 podcast. And I hope everybody's having a great day. So, sorry we're a little bit, a little late here, but it was Christmas for Jez. He was unwrapping his Blizzard presents with tears streaming down his face. So we got a lot here to talk about, obviously. But first, Jez, you have to face the people. You have to face the community. The Xbox 2 community has been calling you out since I started the show. I've seen people in the Xbox Era Discord say, this is what Jez hyped up. You have to answer for these crimes against the Xbox community for hyping up a Blizzard show. What do you say to these charges? Do you plead guilty? Do you plead not guilty? What's going on?
I plead maybe don't hype yourself up.
Oh, don't hype yourself up. Okay, so if you hyped yourself up...
I never said there was going to be a game reveal there.
Oh, but
I said...
True.
I said that... I said Xbox fans want to tune in. I knew Phil was going to be
Xbox fans.
Didn't know what he was going to say.
So Xbox fans only care about Phil Spencer talking for 2 minutes in platitudes.
I didn't know what he was going to say.
I mean, he knew he wasn't going to say anything significant. It wasn't like there was going to be any Game Pass announcements because they weren't. They were saving them for 2024. So Jez says it's all your guys' fault for getting yourself hyped up. He didn't hype anybody up. Okay.
Well, I won't tease anything ever again. How about that?
I'm just saying, you have to, we all have to face the community when we hype things up and they don't pan out,
Well, it is what it is, man.
Just say you love the show. Well, what would you give BlizzCon?
8 out of 10, maybe. I was kind of like, I was disappointed that there was no StarCraft, except for what Phil said. Like, they didn't even put StarCraft in any of the iconography or the trailers or anything like that. There was no sort of honoring of StarCraft or whatever, which I thought was kind of lame. And it was weird that only Phil mentioned it. I think even like when Mike was talking at the start, he was like, "Where's our Overwatch fans? Where's our Warcraft fans?" And then someone in the crowd yelled something like, "What about StarCraft?" And then it was only Phil who mentioned it. And I actually wonder, like, did Phil go off script to mention that? Because I get that the marketing team were kind of like, we want to focus on the content we've actually got coming. But then Phil was just like, screw that. We're talking about StarCraft.
We're going to talk about StarCraft, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, wait.
Overall, I thought it was a great show.
That sounded like clinking. Are you having a drink tonight?
Nope, because people don't like it.
Oh, people don't like it. I
That
mean,
was
like,
actually me. That was actually me putting it away.
no. I mean, you might as well take some shots.
Nah,
Should I have a
nah,
poll here and ask if you should drink? See what the people think.
nah. We're not drinking.
You sure?
Yes.
Anyways, yeah. So BlizzCon's here. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But in the meantime, let's just quickly go through some of the housekeeping before we get into the wonderful topics we have for the show. We'll have the ad sponsor, the company that's sponsoring this episode. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. But we do have the wonderful people at patreon.com. We got some shout outs. We have Holy Dark Death, Steve Stompy, Peter B, James Wiseau, Trixar for Trade, The Grandest of Bip, Battered Haddock, Army Dude 52C, Ryan Kipple, Foreign Object, Mythic Marty, Moronic Donkey 99, Mockazilla, Randall Thor 19, Silas, Eric Gregory, Elijah Vasquez, James Moore, Fantasticals, Halo is the franchise play, Katrox, Bright Chandra 1, Canna has Cheeseburger, Justin Duo, Frank Marjano, Sean Kramer, Peter Broking, Asa T and Madison, Untidy Tim, Grizzly Mofo OG, Governor Grim, Jeezy Huff and Achievement, The Scarecrow 121, Darren Tropy, Prof JJJ, Ghostface Killer, and Wolfgang KPZ. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. And, the question thread on Patreon is open if you want to drop in a last minute question, which usually people end up doing. So, yeah. Geez. I don't even know where do you even want to begin, Jez. You know what?
Well, I noticed you put Activision Blizzard in the
yeah,
title.
I wasn't.
And I was thinking like, what is he referring to?
Yeah, it just refers to everything, but it doesn't matter. It's just a thing for YouTube search and YouTube whatever, right? Doesn't necessarily mean anything. But I mean, you could essentially say that covers all Blizzard, and we're talking about BlizzCon. And then, of course, the Modern Warfare 3 is out right now. You can pre-order it or buy it, and you can get early access to the campaign. So it kind of covers like Activision Blizzard, right? And it's not getting the best reviews, Jazz. Or at least some of the reviews that are out already. IGN put out their review for the campaign. And is it already paying the Xbox tax? Because it got reviewed like it's that Kong game or Quantum Error. It got a 4 out of 10, which is
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10, which is an awful score. And I've seen a lot of reports that the campaign is extremely short, 3 to 4 hours long. I mean, we always talked about the idea of this. This is why I always said they need to make Call of Duty every other year, because I think it's plainly obvious to anybody with the brain that the 3-year cycles that these teams are on is not long enough. They can't create the content at a fast enough clip, and they're always scrambling to change things. Like this year's game was planned to be an expansion to it, and I think people can tell that they didn't spend very long making some of the stuff. So you have Modern Warfare 3 scoring very, very low. To me, a 4 out of 10 is basically like a non-functional game almost. So, although I do wonder if the whole idea of like selling a $70 DLC, like full expansion, factors into some of that. But I mean, I haven't played it yet.
I definitely feel like, I haven't played it either, but like people in my team, they never sent out review codes for this as far as I'm aware. So they've been expecting the reviewers to just buy that early access thing. We definitely didn't get any codes, at least. I'm sure some outlets got codes, but we didn't get codes, and we're in Activision's good books, I would have thought, But anyways, some people in my team who actually did buy it for whatever reason, they were saying how bad it was. Zach Bowden tweeted about it earlier. He bought it and he hates it. So it does seem like this is like, even if it's like not as bad as people make out, in a sort of in terms of raw games criticism, it does deserve some pushback, because I think like this kind of does seem like a $70 DLC.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about like what is $70 supposed to represent? You know, it's supposed to represent a full blown game. You know, and is this a full blown game? Like, yeah, I mean,
it's got the
I don't know if the
campaign.
multiplayer's not live yet, right?
Yeah, the multiplayer's not live yet. The zombies isn't live yet. So I mean, there's still more content.
It feels really weird that they've done it this way. I mean, there is kind of like there is a historical struggle of like companies that like make first person shooters, and it's like, do we make a campaign mode? Do we not bother with a campaign mode? We saw Battlefield go through this, and also like Overwatch 2 cancelled its campaign mode too.
And that was the one
Because
thing people were looking forward to, like myself. I was like, oh, I'm not interested in the multiplayer, but I would play story sections of Overwatch.
So it kind of like, I think some of it is probably backlash, and I would say it's potentially earned backlash. You know, I think like, I don't think they should be able to get away with putting out something that isn't deserving of the $70 price point. If it was like, I don't know, half the price of a usual card or something, because it's half the content of a usual card, or it's half the quality of a usual card, then maybe there's something to be said. And in that vein, maybe it should have been a DLC. But this feels like Bobby Kotick's last gasp almost. And I don't think I think moving forward, it could be an inflection point of like, what are we doing here? We're trying to make an annualized card, and this is what we're coming up with, and we expect people to pay $70 for this. It just doesn't work anymore. So I think like a lot of people speculate that Phil and co could take it to a 2-year dev cycle. I like that idea. Activision shareholders would definitely not have liked that idea.
Yeah, but they don't matter anymore. There's no more Activision shareholders. So
well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like they don't factor in anymore. Sony probably wouldn't like that though, and Sony shareholders wouldn't like the idea of a 2-year card, because that would affect PlayStation's bottom line significantly, because as we all know, Call of Duty is a big cash cow. I mean, Microsoft shareholders, they don't give a crap about what Xbox does. They only care about Azure. So like, it might sort of impact the studio as it's set up in the context of, we expect this much money every year so we can cash flow this, and this is how many devs we've got and all that kind of stuff. But I really do think this represents the idea that they really do need to rethink how Call of Duty is going to be monetized going forward, because if this is what they expect people to pay $70 for, I don't think it's going to work, man. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll still be one of this year's best-selling games, and I'm sure it probably will be, especially since every single Xbox player on Earth got a big banner ad for it this week, which I noticed you also put as a title up in there.
Well, because it was this huge talking point, and we're gonna get to that in a minute. But I want to just ask a simple question, okay? So now that Xbox owns Activision Blizzard, and maybe I'm asking this to the wrong person, because you write for Windows Central, you're an editor, and it's your job to cover Microsoft. Essentially, it's your job to cover Xbox. So maybe it's not the best question to ask you, but I'll just ask it in general, and you can respond how you want, or even people in chat, you can respond as well. So now that Activision Blizzard is under Xbox and everything will be like first party, basically, do you feel? I was going to use the word compelled, but I don't think that's the right word to use. But I'll just use it anyways, even though I don't really mean compelled. Do you feel that you, as an Xbox fan now, are compelled to play Call of Duty, even if it's not something you did before, simply because now it is part of the first party portfolio? I'm someone who plays Call of Duty every year. I'm someone who goes through the campaign every single year and have been doing it since since Call of Duty 2. So it's like a yearly ritual for me. When Jez, you always talked about how COD's a ritual, and that's why they won't remove it from PlayStation. It's a ritual for me, but in an opposite aspect. Like, I don't play the multiplayer. I do play the campaign. And I'm just curious how some fans feel. Like, do they feel like they have to play Call of Duty now because it is first party? Do they feel like they'll have to play World of Warcraft if it ever came to console or any of that sort of stuff? Or is it you're just going to keep on playing what you normally played? It doesn't impact you. Like, for instance, Pentiment came out. I tried out Pentiment for an hour and didn't play it. I've never felt compelled to play a game simply because Microsoft was publishing it. But
no, me neither.
I'm not
We're
like I'm not
we're
everybody
Nintendo
else.
fans.
Yeah, shots fired. Shots fired.
Sorry, that's a joke. That's
Mhm.
definitely a joke. But yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not compelled, and you say you complete Call of Duty every year as a ritual. I am someone who barely ever plays Call of Duty campaign because I've never really liked them. Even
Right.
like the best campaigns, like the original Modern Warfare or whatever. I really enjoyed that. But it's not up there with my favorite experiences in gaming of all time. It did some cool stuff, and there's some memorable scenes in Modern Warfare 2 as well. But like again, it's I don't know, it's not really my genre, I guess. I like a bit of fantasy with my shooters, I guess, whether it's sci-fi or whatever. Generally don't play the military shooters. It doesn't appeal to me that much. But I used to play the shooters every year, but I even dropped off that when I realized, they were basically copy and pasted every year in, year out. And I think for some people that's fine, and it seems to potentially be what they want. They don't want a vastly changed experience. They just want more COD, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the problem emerges when like the more COD they're giving you is ultimately subpar, and that's when like things start to degrade. And like we saw Battlefield go through the cycle, and Battlefield's nowhere near as big as COD. And Battlefield was always my game. Battlefield was like I bounced off Call of Duty. I think maybe Black Ops 1 was the last time I really cared about Call of Duty and played it a lot, and did Prestige and all that kind of stuff. And God, that was a long time ago. But around that time, I flipped over to Battlefield as my main shooter, and I just preferred it way more. It was like, oh wow, dynamic environmental destruction, that's really cool, and the squad-based, the class-based squad structure, that's really awesome too. It's really, really cool when you can like, synergize and play in a squad with your friends, and one of you's a medic and one is a sniper, and you use your abilities correctly as the game's intended and stuff. But then we saw Battlefield bounce off. They completely changed up the way the whole game works, and players punished them for it very, very heavily. And they backtracked, and then players have started coming back. And Battlefield's actually, I believe it's now Battlefield 2042 has gone past its peak concurrent player base recently on Steam. So, yeah, I think that it's tough to balance when you're trying to release a new game every year.
Are we seeing shooters from 2021 have a renaissance? Because both Halo Infinite, released in 2021, and Battlefield 2042, if you remember, EA blamed Halo Infinite for the low reception for Battlefield 2042. You remember? And they didn't.
Yeah, that is hilarious, isn't it?
And Battlefield 2042 didn't even have a campaign, right? Yeah. They sort of dropped campaigns for the Battlefield games. I'm trying to think. Did Battlefield 5 have a campaign?
I think it did.
I know Battlefield 1 did. I'm trying to remember Battlefield 5.
Battlefield 5 did have little campaign missions.
Yeah, it did. You're right. And it wasn't very good though.
It wasn't very good.
That's what I'm trying to remember.
I never finished them. I was like, this is. I think I was reviewing the game, so I did sort of like, I did dabble with them, but I was just like, this is super boring. I'm here for multiplayer. But I always treated COD that way as well. I finished Call of Duty 4's campaign, and I did some of Call of Duty 2's campaign. And this is before I was a journalist and I was super busy. But I thought I just got bored halfway through Modern Warfare 2's campaign and never finished it. I didn't even bother with Black Ops' campaign, and because of that as well. And World at War as well, I never finished that campaign either. I just don't really find military shooters that interesting, and that's a me thing. But it sounds like they're not even doing a good job for people who actually are interested in the genre. So I think they really need to just rethink the whole process, and that's a problem for a game with such a big legacy. I think when you've got like such a big legacy and you've got like so much expectations, not just on you, but also your cash flow expectations. You expect to have this much money every year, so to pay all the developers you've got and that kind of thing. And if they did switch to a 2-year dev cycle, you have to wonder, are they going to have layoffs to compensate?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be. Well, it would be every other year, but essentially because they have 3 developers on it,
But that's less income potentially.
Sure.
That
But
retail box copy of Call of Duty makes a hell of a lot of money.
it does. But I mean, you have to factor in and weigh the possibility of is it better to release the games every single year and have declining quality and maybe declining sales because you need the $70 purchase every single year, or is it better to essentially skip a year so you get less revenue, but the Call of Duty quality starts to raise because you're giving developers more time, and maybe eventually the people that you lost come back to the franchise, and then you have more people playing than ever. I know it's a tough call for any company to make, especially Xbox and Microsoft has just spent $70 billion, and yes, COD is like one aspect of that deal. Like King was the reason they bought it for mobile, but like Call of Duty brings in a lot of money for a lot of people. And, we saw Vanguard come out a few years ago, and even though they lost like, what was it, something like 50 million players with Vanguard? I remember reading in the court documents. It was still the best-selling game of the year. And luckily, the following year is when they rebooted Modern Warfare, so like everybody came back. But you're not always going to be able to reboot, that game. Like it was like people loved the Modern Warfare series, and they're rebooting it for the first time. So yes, people were like, "Oh my god, it's that nostalgia kick." But the only thing they can reboot now is Black Ops. But like, are they really going to be able to reboot it? So you're in this situation where like it sort of seems like Modern Warfare 3 is hobbled together from pieces. Like you have campaign, really short campaign. You got these open combat missions that are kind of set in the Warzone map. You have a Call of Duty Modern, the zombie mode, which is sort of like DMZ from Warzone, but with zombies. And you have like the campaign or the multiplayer, which is all just like remastered maps from previous Modern Warfare games. It just seems like it's a holdover, but they're presenting it as this brand new game, and you could burn people that way. You really could. So you got to be careful, and I'm very curious to see what will happen with this. Now I already see people blaming Microsoft for this game, and it's like, they literally closed the deal, and then the game came out 2 weeks later. Some of that's, of course, the idea of like Xbox fans celebrating Call of Duty as a first-party title. I think there's a difference between Starfield and Modern Warfare 3, where at least you could say Starfield benefited from the Xbox acquisition because they allowed, or at least gave the safe space to Bethesda to delay the game a couple years to make it better. Whereas like this one, the game was coming out regardless, and it was already done. The Xbox acquisition did nothing. But, people like to push their agendas and say, oh, Xbox has already ruined this, etc. But I do think they'll be keeping their eyes on, okay, how many copies of this did we sell? Is the reviews of this game? I mean, granted, it's the campaign now, and you can make the argument that campaign scores don't matter to a Call of Duty experience and people buying it. Like, people buy Call of Duty for the multiplayer. So does it really matter if the campaign is shit? If the multiplayer is really good? I don't know.
Yeah.
There is that aspect of it. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Then they'll have to judge what's our monthly, our monthly active users. What's our revenue spend? I mean, later on we'll be talking about Bungie and Destiny and how they're going through huge problems because they missed their revenue projections. And I think that's something that happened with Halo Infinite. Well, I think they clearly missed their revenue projections, and what do you know? Like, everybody got fired at 343, and if less people buy Call of Duty, then they might miss their projections. So there's a lot going in here, and it's like Microsoft wants to obviously nurture all this. They don't want to run it into the ground. So
they don't want a golden toilet.
They don't want a golden toilet. But I guess the other side of this is the marketing outrage, because this is kind of tied into this. So I figured we talk about it now, because I saw a lot of people get pissed off about this, and I'm kind of like two minds on this. So for those that don't know, and not everybody got this, because when I loaded up my system yesterday, I did not have it. But when you load up your Xbox, some people were greeted with, before even seeing the dashboard,
I think they turned it off.
maybe they did, but before even seeing the dashboard, they were introduced to a full-blown, full-screen boot-up ad for the new Call of Duty where it said, hey, you can buy it now, or, play it now, buy the Vault Edition, or back, right? And you can just easily back out of it, get back to the dashboard. But this really opened up a huge can of worms online, because one thing people love to do is they love to complain about stuff, because that type of content gets a lot of engagement when people are angry. When people are happy, not so much. But when people are angry, they flock to it, right? So there was definitely people who were extremely, extremely outraged. How dare Microsoft do this? This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen from a gaming company. You should read some of the takes that I've saw online and in forums, right?
Yeah, that's a bit extreme, I think.
But then there are other people who are like, this isn't a big deal. You can just easily back out of it, right? It's shorter to back out of it than writing a tweet about it, right? All that sort of stuff. And personally, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, where was the outrage for this when they did this for Starfield and Forza Motorsport? Hell, I was
confused because I never saw those.
Yeah, and I did. I had both of those.
And that made me wonder, like, they must be A/B testing this. Because I think I might have seen the Starfield one, but I definitely did not get one for Forza.
Well, it's funny.
Kind of wonder if maybe they're trying to do it by who they think will like the ad, I guess.
Maybe, it's possible.
But anyway, continue.
Well, the thing is, like, if you would think, as someone who's bought the previous Call of Duties, you would think I would get an ad for Call of Duty to let me know that, hey, it's available. But it's not. They also did it for the June showcase. After that was done, you turned on your Xbox, there was a full-blown ad for that. Like, watch the showcase. There was even a full-blown ad for the, I want to say...
informative, though, I kind of feel like.
Sure, it was. But the point is, it's not the first time that they have done full-blown ads the first time you, like, power up the system, right? They also did one for the ABK deal. When the ABK deal was completed, they did one as well.
You do get one, because I set up my Xbox Series S recently, because I'm going to test games on Series S and Series X side by side. Well, I aspire to. Whether I have time or not, it's a different discussion. But I did notice as well that when you load up a new Xbox, it gives you a giant... It's the same system. It gives you a giant ad for, Gamepass and stuff. So, I mean, the system isn't new. Like, but I think it was just... for a lot of people, it just kind of came as unexpected. It was certainly unexpected for me, because like I was loading up and getting ready to play Diablo, and I wrote an article about it. I don't want this to become the norm, but like if you actually read the article, I asked, unlike you, nobody reads the article. Of course they don't. If you actually read the article, I pretty much both sides and say it's not a big deal actually. So like, I hardly think what I wrote constitutes outrage. It was just mild irritation, and it's kind of like,
bro, I saw some posts that were pure outrage.
Yeah. I definitely saw that too, and I was like, it's not that big of a deal. And you saw people trying to dunk on it, and PlayStation fanboys trying to use it as a thing. But I will say, like, I think like it's still important to push back on this kind of stuff, because if you don't, it becomes a slippery slope. And what is like an occasional ad for a flagship title today will eventually become like, okay, every time you turn on your Xbox, there's a splash screen for something. And then, like, the next time, maybe it's not a splash screen for a game you care about. Maybe it's a splash screen for some complete stupid game you actually really don't like. And then in the future, maybe it's not even a splash screen for a game. Maybe it's a splash screen for Starbucks or McDonald's or something like that, or Mountain Dew. It is a slippery slope, I think.
Sure.
So I think, like, I think, like, people... the opposite direction. I think people are like, who are like, oh, it's no big deal, just ignore it, whatever. It's not a big deal in the grand scheme of life, no. But I think like it's worth voicing the fact that it's annoying, because if you don't, it will be a slippery slope. I kind of feel like, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, because I'm like two minds of this. Like when I got the Starfield one, I was like, this is different, and I understand why Microsoft's doing it, right? Everybody talks how Microsoft should market more, which they have been, right? They got buses out there with Starfield and stuff, and Microsoft has all these monthly active users that tune into Xbox and turn their system on, so why not give them a little update, be like, hey, I know we have advertisement little bubbles on your dashboard in the bottom corner of stuff, but what if we just had like a full-blown ad celebrating the launch of our first-party title that you can't miss when you turn your system on? Maybe someone forgot about it, and they're like, oh, Starfield's actually out now, let me sign up for that and stuff like that, right? But I'm also somebody that literally always pays for the option never to get ads. Netflix, highest tier, don't get ads, right? Hulu, highest tier, so I don't get ads. YouTube Premium, like, I've been a YouTube Premium member for, since I started making content in 2016, so I never see ads. Like, right. I'm the type of person that doesn't like advertisements. I don't like being advertised to. As I say that, as we're going to have a sponsor later on in the video, but
I wrote that in my article too. Like, I'm well aware there might be Call of Duty. I'm well aware there might be Call of Duty ads appearing next to this article, but hey, this article is free.
Yes,
I didn't pay $500 for this website.
Because people get upset at like the ads on the dashboard. People are like, there should be no ads on the dashboard. So I knew people would be upset where you would have like, turn on your system and it's right there in your face. And I know it is ironic that we've been talking about this longer than essentially how long it takes to dismiss the ad, right? Because it's like a press of a button and it's over with. And here we are talking about it. But so there's a part of me that's like, when I saw the Starfield thing, I went to a couple of my Xbox friends that work at the company. I'm like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like the idea of turning on the system and getting like an ad right in my face. Because I don't really care. I don't like advertisements. I always pay to skip them, right? And they're like, they gave me some explanation, or it's not that big of a thing because you can skip it, which is always the thing. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. You can skip it, which you can. You can just boom, 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 and you're out, and you're done, and you're moving on with your life and whatever. But there are large groups of people that do not like advertisements. And this might sort of be, how do I say this? Maybe over the top. I'm sure some people will be like, Rand, you're being ridiculous. But there's a part of me that thinks, like, all the time with Xbox, how, Phil always says, hey, we put the player first in everything we do, right? That's something he always talks about. Player first mentality. How they have in their leadership meetings, how they have an empty chair that's supposed to represent the player, right? They've talked about that before. And every decision they go along with is supposed to be, for the player, even though they raise prices in Brazil for whatever reason nobody can figure out and they don't get an answer for. But, player first, right? Player first. And it's like, is that player first having an ad when you turn on your Xbox? Is that a player first kind of thing? And I was just like, no, it's not really. It's company first. And it sort of comes off to me as desperate in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I know that maybe you can say that's over the top.
I just feel
because
like you've got ad blocks on the dashboard.
Right. I just how easily you can dismiss it. But there's just a part of me that's just like, that sort of just is desperate. Like being like, all right, we turn on your Xbox, boom, here's a game, buy it now. Right? And then the whole slippery slope argument, Jacqueline says this is not worth the conversation. It's nothing. Don't you dare tell me what I can and cannot talk about on my podcast. Ever. I'll talk about what I want to talk about, Queen. Where's my books, by the way? It's still not here. After I clowned you last week for not sending me my books. Anyways. Yeah, I know it's over the top, but it's whatever. I just wanted to mention it, and I get the whole slippery slope thing. It's like, you don't say anything about it now, but then what happens if the next time you turn it on and it's a 2-minute ad, right, that you can't skip, and it's just an ad that plays, or some sort of thing because nobody spoke up. So I figured we had to mention it because there's definitely, even in our own chat, there is very much a divisive opinion about this. Some don't care, some care a lot, and I think the people that don't or that do care are kind of like more like Jez and myself, where it's like, well, I don't want this to be anything more than what it is. Like, I don't want it to be 5 years from now, and it's like, turn on my Xbox and here's an ad for Starbucks that I can't skip or something, right? We'll see.
Yeah, it's no big deal. I mean, I think, but that's why I think it's important to speak up, because I think Microsoft will have heard this now, and they'll be like, well, we'll think twice before we go through with that bullshit again, or make it worse or whatever.
I'll make a poll.
So,
I'll make a poll. We'll get the viewers to chime in here. How would I phrase this as a question for the people though, Jez? Are
I don't know.
you okay with the boot up ads for Xbox first party games? Yes. They're fine. They are fine. No. They suck. Should I have a third option? Like, I don't care,
Okay.
I guess?
Yes.
Okay. I don't care. I don't care. Start poll. There we go. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It kind of just came out of nowhere, and I was just wondering why. Like, why all this outrage, considering it's happened before? You know, it's like it happened with Starfield and Forza Motorsport, but yeah, you didn't really see people talk about it, or because like all the websites covered this. Like, this was a huge topic, right? And it was like, but it wasn't even like the first time this has happened at all. This has happened previously, and like nobody sort of covered it. But now, because it's I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that it strictly has to do with the ABK and the Modern Warfare thing, right?
Really?
Where, dude, I don't know how you can explain it not getting the same treatment when it happened with Starfield or Forza, for that matter. Like, you would think you would have the same sort of articles written about it, and forum threads about it, but there wasn't, and it was kind of just like, I don't know. You know, anyways.
It's kind of interesting though. Like, it will be interesting over the next year or so to look at how Xbox is perceived differently in the media, you know. And I sort of like, I resent the idea that people said I was outraged about it, because I did one tweet and I wrote one article about it. And in the article, I was explaining why they might be doing it, and you know, two sides did, right? Devil's advocated it as well, but like, the people sort of, they don't read past the headline, and you know, outlets kind of like often, you know, there is that outrage bait culture thing in the media in general, where it's like, what's the latest outrage bait? We all know, like, that British outlet Metro, they love to cloud on Xbox all day long, and they have like their little reader feature, and it's almost always negativity about Xbox. It's very rarely negativity about PlayStation, because, like, you know, that's sort of their prerogative at the end of the day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how some of, like, Blizzard, I kind of feel like Bethesda has a microscope on it since they joined Xbox, and I kind of feel like we'll see outlets treat maybe Blizzard differently or Activision differently, and other properties that Microsoft has acquired. They'll treat them with a little bit more differently than they have in the past, and it'll be interesting to see how narrative shift and that kind of thing in the future. But I do think, you know, it's worth bringing up the stuff, even though people are like, it's a nothing burger or whatever. I do think it's worth mentioning it, because, like I say, slippery slope. I believe that. I fully believe the slippery slope stuff. And you know, with regards to how IGN's scoring Call of Duty, you know, if they're it's Microsoft's name on the branding now, you know, and they'll be wanting to make sure these games are as good as they can be, and that, you know, they are sort of achieving a level of quality that they want Xbox to be known for, you know, that that's often just eluded them for whatever reason, fair or not, right? So I mean, one thing I am concerned about, Rand, with regards to this ABK stuff and Xbox stuff, I'm worried that now, like, we could say for sure that Xbox's future is secured now. I would say,
of course, yes.
Xbox's future is definitely secured. There's no, like, up until now, I think the whole time I've been covering Xbox, the whole entire time of my, I've been writing about Xbox for 10 years almost. The whole time I've been writing about Xbox, it's felt like things could go bad. Things could go south at any minute, and that Satya and etc. could pull the plug. This is the first time since I've been covering Xbox that I actually believe Xbox is safe, fully safe from whatever comes now. They've got the big mobile play. They've got all this million. They've got a million service games and all this stuff. There's like no way Microsoft was bullshitting about wanting to be in gaming. There's no way this was ever bullshit now. However, what does Microsoft look like in that new world where they're no longer desperate, where they no longer need to suck up and placate and, you know, be the good guy as much as possible? What does Microsoft look like in that world? I think there is a non-trivial chance, even though Phil's running the show, even though, like, you know, we do get the platitudes, like you say, and player first and all this stuff. I think there's a real chance that now Xbox is really secure. We could see the emergence of arrogant Xbox, you know, and that's something like I really want to keep an eye on, and I want to hold Microsoft accountable, you know. I really want to. So that's how, like, I'll be looking at them differently. I'll be like, I'm going to be looking at you guys with a microscope because, you know, you've done all this great stuff, and, you know, to deliver for Xbox fans at the end of the day, but I don't want to see you guys, like, sort of sacrifice what you've built and sacrifice the goodwill you've earned with the Xbox community by going into this arrogant mode now, where you think you can just do whatever you want because now you've got Warcraft and Call of Duty, you know. So it's still going to be an interesting few years to see how Xbox deals with all this stuff. Is Xbox going to become like this arrogant company? Are they gonna stop engaging on social media as much? Are things like Xbox Fan Fest gonna go away because they no longer needs that grassroots movement? It's sort of interesting to think about. So yeah, I don't want to hold them accountable, and I think everyone else should hold them accountable.
Yeah.
What?
Joaquin wants me to say to apologize for him because he finally bought my books.
All right.
Yeah, it only took him a month after it for our bet, but he bought my books finally off my wish list on Amazon. So, thank you for honoring your bet, Joaquin. I appreciate it greatly. So now I can start the Expanse. So now I have the first 3. So there you go. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I had to call you out like a little bitch on the podcast. But now you're it's all right, bro.
Wow, that's harsh.
Right. Yeah, I know.
That's harsh.
Let me get to some of these super chats, and then we will move on from this. So yeah, the marketing talk. I knew that was going to kind of be like, whatever, but I don't know. It sort of had to be talked about. We got Nintendo Down the Otaku says, Jez, I wasted 2 hours of my life watching BlizzCon for the Odyssey announcement. My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined. Ouch.
Oh well.
Ouch.
Sure
well, yeah, I mean, Odyssey wasn't there. And everybody sort of felt it was going to be there, even when they announced the 2.5 hour, 2 hour time frame for the keynote. People were like, "Oh my god, that's really long." Odyssey is going to have to be there.
What else would they show?
But yeah, what else were they going to show?
2.5 hours long in the end. So,
it was 2 hours, right? Essentially.
Yeah, it was about. It wasn't even that. It was about an hour and 45 minutes ish. Yeah, it was kind of a surprise, really. That I really thought Odyssey was going to be there.
You really did. You really did think it was going to be there.
I never reported it. I just sort of expected it. I think a lot of people did though.
Yeah, you really thought it was going to be there. I mean, I thought it was going to be there too with how you were saying it. Maybe that just means that they'll reveal it at that Xbox Summer Showcase, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they kind of the Diablo devs kind of hinted that we'll showcase more about the next Diablo expansion over the summer. I mean, what other show would it be? It'd be the Xbox show, surely,
right? I mean, because with Bethesda, after they acquired Bethesda, they did 2 years of Xbox and Bethesda showcase. to let everybody know, hey, Bethesda's a part of Xbox. And I guarantee you they're probably going to want to do the same, where they tie together Activision, Blizzard, and Call of Duty to Xbox. And one of the ways you can do that is at the big show. So you could have the Xbox and Activision Blizzard showcase. You don't need to have Bethesda in the title, because you had it for the first 2 years, and then this year's E3 was just the Xbox show. So Xbox and Bethesda are intertwined. Starfield came out, right? Hi-Fi Rush came out. Redfall came out, right? Everybody, I wouldn't say maybe everybody knows about it, but they did that whole marketing stuff for a couple years. But now, since the acquisition's closed, you could essentially call this summer showcase the Xbox and Activision Blizzard, right? Kind of start the whole, hey, we're together again, we're Xbox. Maybe that's the time frame where, yeah, you show off the new Diablo 4 expansion. Maybe if you want to have an announcement for World of Warcraft on console, maybe that's where you do it. Maybe if you have the announcement for the brand new game Odyssey, that's where you make it, right? I sort of feel like that's what the branding is going to be. It's Xbox and Activision Blizzard. I don't think they'll do Xbox and Blizzard and Activision, Xbox and Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, because that's just too much of a mouthful. And they've already dropped the Bethesda name from it, but I do think they'll have the Activision Blizzard. And normally with Call of Duty, they usually reveal that stuff later in the year as like its own sort of thing. But I could easily see there being a teaser trailer for the new Call of Duty, which is supposed to be by Treyarch, at the show, just to kind of once again tie everything in, make people realize that, hey, this is happening, like, oh, it's on Game Pass, and not necessarily a full-blown trailer, but like you could do a minute teaser. Well, if it is a Black Ops game or something, and then boom, Game Pass, and then boom, here's the Odyssey, reveal. Whether or not it's exclusive, who knows? It might be multi-plat, but you do it at an Xbox show that's Xbox branded. I sort of feel like maybe that's the way you go about it. The best way to go about it, maybe.
So. That could work.
Yeah. Sith Lord says, bleep these people. I love BlizzCon, Jez. Thank you. Joe Repcrow, a.k.a. Flame, says, it's okay, Jez-chan. We don't blame you, uwu.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I never suggested there was going to be a game reveal there. It was just kind of like expectations. The only thing I really knew for sure was that Phil was going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, if Phil's there, like, I kind of would have expected something to be announced, especially within the 2 hour long, 2.5 hour long time frame that they'd allocated for the keynote.
But I mean, like, to be fair, it's like, I think you did think there's going to be more Xbox stuff there. And,
I didn't think there was going to be Xbox.
Or at least Odyssey was going to be there.
I thought there was at least going to be Odyssey. And I didn't think they'd do that much on mobile, to be honest with you. And a lot of it was just like reiterating stuff that we already knew with regards to mobile. Like they announced Warcraft Rumble again without any new information. So yeah, I suppose it is what it is.
Yeah. RDX Son of Fett says, what do you think Xbox console strategy will be next gen in 2028? Well, I mean, assuming that leak is true, we sort of know some of their strategy. I guess, will they do the two console approach again? Will they have a low-powered console and a high-powered console? Will they introduce their own first-party handheld? And maybe you have a handheld and then you have a console? I don't know. Like, I know Microsoft is very much into supporting the handhelds right now, right? Isn't there some like new Windows compact mode or Xbox compact thing, something like that? Wasn't there like an update, or was that just for like the Xbox? I don't really pay attention to the PC updates, so I don't know if that was for handheld or if that was just for the Xbox app in general. So I might not be up to date on that one. But anyways, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what, I mean, Xbox is implying that it's not the full plans or the right plans. How much of that is true? Would that apply to the next gen stuff? I don't know. I think it's really too early to say. And it's really too early to guess. Like, I don't know. Like, do they think the Series S was a gamble that paid off? And if it is,
I hope not.
Would they do it again? And if it isn't, do they say, we're not doing that again? Maybe it's just better to have one console. But then they look at the Switch 2 or Switch, and they might think, we maybe need to do one of those. So instead of a low-end console, you have a hybrid or something. I don't know. I don't know what they're planning on doing with their console strategy. I mean, all we know is that there will be a console. As far as like what everything will entail, no idea. And we got a long time to wait too. It's 2023, so we probably won't find out any of that info until.
I'll be honest. I'm kind of nervous about next gen because the stuff that was in that plan that we're talking about, like making a cloud computing AI thing, and it makes me wonder, like, are they going to try and do something, sort of, I don't know, just something that Microsoft wants, but not necessarily gamers. Like, I don't think gamers really care about having AI stuff baked into the console, frankly. And I don't think Microsoft has a goodwill to necessarily try and screw around with the status quo too much. So yeah, I think, I don't know. I'm sort of very much in a holding pattern, wait and see with regards to the leaked plans. But that's the thing about leaked plans. They're lacking a lot of context, and they were more for internal use and not really public use. So maybe they were trying to sell something internally, politically at Microsoft, being like, hey, our console is going to have AI in it. That means you should give us $1 million because we're an AI company now. But really, it's just sort of like going to be something that doesn't matter, and that mostly it's going to be just a normal console. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. And like you say, it's going to be a long time before we find out either way.
Yeah. We have KS Mike says, Jez, what are the chances that World of Warcraft goes to Xbox?
I think they're pretty high now. I would have in the past said, like, they wouldn't there's so many logistical issues with making that work with regards to UI mods and things like that. But I think now that they're actually part of Xbox, they'll actually try and work it out, because I think there's a lot of money to be made for them if they do bring it across.
Yeah. Just James 93. Listening to your old videos, still, can Rand say Worcester properly? Jokes aside, thanks for all the content you provided. It will take me years to watch. Did I say that right? Worcester?
Worcester.
How do you say it?
Worcester.
Worcester? That's not how you
Worcester.
say that word.
It is. It's Worcester. God.
Isn't it like Worcester? Worcester
it's a
sauce?
Viking word, man. It's a Viking word.
Oh, okay. Danny Passion Official. I refund Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 campaign sucks. Okay.
Ouch.
I'll play it for myself. I do have a code. Activision sent me a code, but I haven't played it yet. So
they sent me one.
Well, yeah, Activision sent me one. Probably sent me. So it's like, I haven't played it yet, though. I haven't even downloaded it yet, because we'll talk about this in a minute. I finished Alan Wake 2 and just sold, and I started up RoboCop, which is the gameplay that the Patreons voted for. Some good old fashioned RoboCop. We have Sin Vendetta. Rand, I really enjoyed the Defining Duke's Starfield spoiler cast. That was a lot of fun to do. Luckily, I wrapped up my first playthrough and the rest of the achievements before watching. Looking forward to part 2. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was me, Cognito, Maddie, and Gene Park. A lot of fun talking about the main story and spoilers for that. Darkwing says, imagine if they alternated years with COD 1 year, then a Halo, Gears, Doom game, or other multiplayer shooters the other year. Less competition between own IPs. I mean, yeah, Xbox has a lot of games, but like the thing is that Jez and myself mentioned, like, you remove Call of Duty 1 year, that is a black hole of revenue that you've suddenly missed out on, that you've been getting for who knows how long. And is that something you plan for? Is that something
they'd have to like do a write down? They'd have to like.
Well,
say,
I mean, is it possible?
We're not going to make this much money.
Is it possible like Activision was already planning this within their 5 to 10 year projections that they shared with Microsoft? Like, this is what we plan on doing, and these, right? So like maybe Microsoft already knows they were going to plan, doing that, right?
You want to think so, but it's also kind of like, if that is the eventual plan, why not start it this year when you didn't have a full game to make? Release rather.
Maybe they thought the deal wouldn't go through this year. And they were just trying to save their ass, because if the deal didn't go through or was blocked, and then they didn't have a full game, their stock price would have been like $20, and then anybody could have bought them. Embracer could have bought them. You know what I mean? Right? So yeah, I don't know. Clizzle of 420 says, crying having to press an A button 1 time is ridiculous. Celso 17 says, Jez again with the false hype. First the PlayStation Showcase, now Blizzard. Thumbs down.
I don't even know what he's talking about with PlayStation Showcase, to be honest. What is he talking about? When did I ever hype a PlayStation Showcase?
I'll let that one go.
And I didn't even hype this. I just said that Xbox fans will want to watch because Phil Spencer's going to be there. I wish I just said Phil Spencer's going to be there and then let everyone else hype themselves up. But yeah.
You know, even with you saying that, guess what? I didn't even bother watching BlizzCon because I knew it wasn't going to be worth it. The only thing would be worth it was for Odyssey, and they didn't even show it. So it was like, yeah, you know. Danny Passionate Fool says, ads? Steam does the same. How you manage that, Rand? I don't use Steam, bro. Have you been listening to this podcast long? I don't game on PC. So, no. I don't get ads on Steam because I never load up Steam. And as far as I'm aware, you can turn that off on Steam too, and you'll never get them.
No, there's always a pop-up on Steam when you open it first.
Is there?
Time. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't I don't game on PC, bro. Sorry. Highlander 001. Remember 14 months. I give the opening for BlizzCon a 5 out of 10. I love what I saw for World of Warcraft. Looks like I'm going back to Azeroth for the Alliance and Horde. Jay Rembert says, why do certain people get triggered for something Xbox does when PlayStation and Nintendo does the exact same thing? I mean, it's kind of tribalism to a certain extent, right? Xbox fans, PlayStation fans, Nintendo fans get upset at essentially what the others are doing. That's essentially what it is. It's tribalism. How could you be possibly doing that over there? Or then they get upset about stuff that your company does, stuff, whatever. That's what it is. Panda Man says, hey bros, why does the Xbox store stink? Overpriced and hard to find new games. If we are moving to a digital-only future, Xbox needs to improve. Well, is it hard to find new games? I mean, they have like a new game section. It's one of the first things on the store. I mean, I guess you could. I don't really think it's hard to find new games. I do think though that the store has a lot of stuff on it where like new games do get buried pretty easily. But I think I'm not sure how you solve that simply because there's like 10 to 20 games that come out every single week. And I do think for the most part, the search option, if you know what you want, it's fine. As far as overpriced,
standard industry pricing.
I mean, the companies set their own prices. The developers set the prices of their own games. Indie devs set the prices of their own games. The only thing Microsoft has control on is the prices of their own stuff. So, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that games are overpriced in general. But I don't think the store is overpriced in comparison to other stores that are the same. Because, like I mentioned, like everything's set by the publishers and developers. So, unless you're talking about different regions, like why is it more overpriced in different countries? And that's obviously a thing for regional issues and stuff, right?
And then we need to become an economics podcast.
Yeah. Biggity08, member for 7 months. Xbox needs to market their games. I don't like Xbox marketing their games. They can't win. Yeah. I think what people say when they want Xbox to market their games is they want them to market their games to people that don't know about Xbox, not to people who do know about Xbox, right? They want to see buses. They want to see billboards in Times Square. They want to see ads on television because they feel like Xbox is underrepresented in that area, and they want more people that don't know. Like normies, as Jez would call them. They want Xbox to market themselves to these normies. And they're not talking about Xbox marketing their games to their own fans that already know, right? that already know that Starfield's out and that Forza Motorsport's out and that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. That's not the type of marketing that I think when people talk about that, that's not what they're talking about. Would you agree with that, Jez?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just don't think that ad was necessary personally. But
what else we got here? We got Nintendo down the Otaku. Gamers, man, why is Xbox not advertising marketing? This is why they're third place. Also, gamers, I can't believe Xbox is advertising evil. Yeah, well, we just sort of answered that. Special Nick says, lol, Jez overhyping another Xbox show, lol. Well, damn. Even Special Nick is coming in here to clown you, Jez. I mean, you got to say something to him, bro. You got to say something to Nick.
Well, the thing about Special Nick is that he doesn't like games.
Oh,
so I wouldn't expect Nick to find any show fun.
No, he loves Nintendo shows.
Oh, right.
Right, because he's an Xbox podcast host that doesn't like Xbox, who's really a Nintendo fan in disguise. And when I
don't think he even likes Nintendo.
No, he likes Nintendo. But the thing is, like, when he watches shows, it's all boring to him because he knows he's never going to play any of the games shown, right? Like, Xbox could show 40 games, and he played one of them. Because he just doesn't play games on Xbox, right? So, of course, the show's going to be bad because you're not interested in anything that's being shown because it's not Nintendo, right? But, I mean, as you mentioned, you cried during this Blizzard show. And I'm sure there are a lot of Blizzard fans who love this show. Well, no, you said you cried. You said you had tears. You had tears on your screen.
I had teary eyes, but it wasn't necessarily because of the games. It was kind of like Blizzard's been through hell, and this is my favorite developer, and they've been through hell and back. And it just kind of feels like I've been writing about how Activision kind of negatively impacted Blizzard for years. Which is why I'm surprised that Activision engaged me at all, because I wrote a really nasty article about Bobby Kotick a few years ago. Back in 2016, actually. Like, it was a really long time ago. And, and it's kind of felt like with Phil and Mike and all this stuff, it just felt like this is a turning point, For a studio, that means a lot to me. So, yeah, I was hyped for it, and I'm sorry if you weren't, I guess.
Yeah, imagine Special Nick telling anybody to get excited for anything. You know what I mean? Nick, and also you need to actually bring a bigger super chat, because when me and Jez go to your show, we super chat a lot more than $2 Australian didgeridoos, which is like what, 10 cents American, essentially, right? Isn't that how much it is?
Something like that.
Come on. Michael says, with mobile lacking support for DirectX, does Microsoft try push mobile DirectX support or move all projects to Valken? I feel like that's a question for you because that's all gibberish to me.
I honestly don't know. This is kind of beyond me. That's more of a dealer question, maybe.
I have no idea what even Valken is. So yeah,
it's a graphics API, I think. So yeah, it's Vulkan. Vulkan is is it I don't know what it is. Is it AMD's API? I don't know, man. But it's all up in the air. Like, Microsoft now owns so much tech with Activision and its software and all, and Bethesda, like all these engines and all this tech, and then they've got DirectX and Havoc sitting on top of all this stuff. They probably do need some kind of strategy for how to unify all this stuff, because they've got a lot of tech sitting all over the place at the company, so they could do a lot with it, potentially. Be interested to see what happens, though.
Yeah. We have Crippling Debt saying, maybe Sony are trying to 4D chess so regulators break up the merger post-acquisition by looking like they're utterly falling apart and can't survive. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just typical behind-the-scenes drama because, sometimes plans change. Sometimes the things you do plan for don't turn out, and you have to pivot and do different stuff. What?
How about this? Maybe Microsoft knew that Sony was going to play 4D chess, so Microsoft started playing 5D chess.
5D chess. That's incredible.
5D chess, and that's why the new Call of Duty really sucks.
Because in the end, who does it really hurt? PlayStation, right?
So now we're in 60 chess, where like Microsoft's going to sabotage Call of Duty just to sabotage PlayStation.
Phew. I mean, that's a bold strategy. Could that work?
I don't know. That'd be 60 chess.
Maybe they run Call of Duty into the ground. So in a couple years, they essentially make a new franchise, not called Call of Duty, that then they can make exclusive because they essentially destroyed Call of Duty. You know, that's 10D chess, right?
Indies.
Fresco says it's funny how some PlayStation fans blame Xbox for COD. I mean, that'll always happen. It'll happen for every single acquisitions thing till the end of time. Dean Riviera says Phil Spencer just changed the Game Pass Ultimate for employees. They can keep the access now. News just broke if you count it as news. Lol. Love the show. Is this true, Jez? Did it just break?
I don't know. I suppose so. I believe it because I did see that Phil said that he wasn't aware they were doing it. So maybe this is the thing I'm talking about. Like people were saying like, you know, Sarah Bond made the decision to raise prices.
I see the one and only Tom Warren 15 minutes ago says, scoop number 2, Microsoft employees will keep free access to Game Pass Ultimate after complaints. Xbox chief Phil Spencer stepped in and reversed the decision. Read Spencer's message here. So essentially, if you guys don't know, it was reported by Tom Warren yesterday that Microsoft was getting rid of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for all Microsoft employees. I guess that's a perk they get?
Yeah, it's a perk. Also, it serves a purpose. Like you could call it dog fooding, you know, where a company gets their employees to use one of their products, right?
Sure.
So it's that's some like serious nickel and diming. That is.
So what Tom originally reported was that they were getting rid of it for Microsoft employees, but Xbox employees would still get it, right? Because obviously they use the product. But it was just like the Azure devs, the Excel devs, etc. You know, but yeah, apparently Phil didn't know, which is interesting considering he's CEO of Microsoft Gaming. But then, of course, not every decision goes through Phil.
Why would he know every single decision?
And that's what I'm saying. Not every decision goes through Phil or goes through Sarah Bond or whatever. So Tom Warren's reporting that this is what Phil says. This is according to Tom Warren. Spencer has now confirmed the decision will be reversed and that Microsoft employees will keep the Game Pass Ultimate benefit. Here's Phil's message to Microsoft employees. He says, after looking into this more with the team, I just want to confirm that no change will be made to Game Pass availability in 2024. If you have access to the Game Pass offer today, you will continue to have access. I appreciate the time to get up to speed and sorry for the questions and confusion created, and thanks for supporting Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, no immediate reason why Microsoft initially decided to remove it, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, Phil's not saying that you'll always forever have it. Because you know, you're not going to say that, but at least for 2024, you will.
I think part of it might be just symptomatic of the fact that Microsoft's no longer counting Game Pass as their metrics for Xbox's success anymore, because it's become kind of redundant. Because now it's like Xbox Live Gold itself is Game Pass core, right? So they're probably of the mindset like it's pointless for us to try and, you know, pad these numbers maybe. So let's just stop doing it. And then they were like, oh, actually, well, a lot of people really like this perk and it's a nice perk to have if you're a Microsoft employee. So, yeah, I think it's quite interesting that they've stopped counting Game Pass metrics towards, they've started downplaying Game Pass a little bit. They've started like really going out there and saying like Game Pass isn't the entire strategy. It's just like one option. We're not getting rid of retail. We still, you know, support our retail partners and all this kind of stuff. Like, you know, very, very different sort of tone of messaging compared to like a few years ago with regards to Game Pass. So, but yeah, I mean, why do you need Game Pass if you've got Activision, Call of Duty Mobile, and, you know, Warcraft Rumble's number one trending on iOS and Android right now.
Yeah, but I mean, Phil never said Game Pass was the be all end all even years ago. He always said it was just
he didn't. But
one
people
option.
did take it like that.
Sure, and I mean, I guess there's the whole thing that like Satya's bonus perks don't include Game Pass anymore, right?
Yeah, all their bonuses were tied to Game Pass, so that's a significant change, and it represents the idea that it's not the be all and end all anymore, I guess. But.
Sure. KS Mice says Xbox Store also needs to be on the app. Shout out to Welf Wiggum, becoming the newest member of the channel. The Andrew 13 says most played games Xbox PlayStation is Fortnite. Ad may help. I mean, Fortnite's the biggest game. Well, I mean, Minecraft's the biggest. Well, I mean, Minecraft's like the most sold game ever, but when you look at like the most popular game on console, it is clearly Fortnite, and it's the live service games. You can take a look at the Xbox. It's basically Fortnite, Call of Duty. Sometimes they intersperse when the new Call of Duty's out, so maybe the new COD becomes number one for a little bit. But I mean, Fortnite just released they just released a new season with the old map, the very first map. They're trying to get that nostalgia play a little bit. It's kind of funny, nostalgia from 6 years ago, essentially, when the game first came out. But it's like the top 10. Let me just read the top 10 right now. Shall I, Jez? This is what This is the top 10 played games on Xbox. At least in the U.S., because these charts do change depending on where you live. So number 1's Fortnite. Number 2 is Call of Duty. 3 is Roblox, which also had a huge first month on PlayStation as well, because now that's on PlayStation. The 3 is Roblox. 4 is Rainbow Six Siege. Still going strong. What is that? 7 years later? 8 years? 8 years later, because that came out in 2015, right?
Yeah.
NBA 2K24 is number 5. Apex Legends is number 6. Grand Theft Auto 5, Xbox One, is number 7. And then Starfield. Starfield, still in the top 10. Essentially, 2 months after it's been out, right? September, more than 2 months since it's been out. Still in the top 10. Number 9 is Minecraft, and number 10 is Madden 24. And then even go a little bit, you got Rocket League is 11. Overwatch 2 is 12. Grand Theft Auto for the Xbox Series X and S is 13. Destiny 2 is 14. And then Halo Infinite's 15. So, I mean, like, the most played games on Xbox are all your live service titles.
Yeah.
And look at Halo Infinite. Talk about a resurgence. Halo Infinite was languishing in the 30s. And they released this new season, and it's up to, like, number 15. I saw people say online that essentially it's seeing something like 900,000 users or something, like monthly users or something, like it's averaging like 70,000 concurrent users combined. I don't know.
I did see someone was like, it's reached its highest concurrency ever. I don't think that's true. I spoke to some people who are familiar with what's going on there, and I don't think it's reached its highest peak concurrency ever, but it's the highest average concurrency since the live service, from what I understand. So like maybe since like season 1, season 2, it's the highest concurrency. But I think a lot of people they're going to just play the campaign, right? Because I'm kind of like that with Halo. I play the stories, and I never touch the campaign because I'm the multiplayer, because I'm really super bad at it, as we've established on the show.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know.
No,
I mean, either way, it's really impressive numbers, and it's a really impressive turnaround. And I think like they are, they've got to be happy with what they've done. They've done a really great job.
Can that Pierre do the same thing he did for Halo Infinite as he did for Modern or Master Chief Collection? It looks like he is. You know,
I thought you were going to say Modern Warfare then.
I was about to say. I was going to say, if they can string together a couple more seasons like this where people get really excited, it could be on the fast track back, baby. I mean, the fact that it's back in the top 15 when it was in the bottom 30, essentially, that's pretty impressive, and it stayed there. I even when I look at this list and I see Starfield still in the top 10 after 2 months, you know, after all the God, I still can't believe all the media articles written about that game and everything, and all the shit that was flung at Starfield. But when you look at it, it's like still pulling numbers on Steam, still doing great on Xbox. Yeah. So it's like it's doing what it's doing, and it's gonna be in the top 50 forever. I mean, Fallout 4 is still on here, so Skyrim. Like, these games are gonna be played for a long time, and they did just announce that I think DLSS is coming to Steam soon.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're gonna be updating the game for a bit, but yeah, it's like you look at Halo. It's like better late than never, but and then some people will be like, well, the game should have been like this from the very start. That's why some people are leery on games as a service when they first come out, because it sort of seems like they released the game in and not in a complete state, and then it's got to spend a couple years before it actually gets good, right? Sea of Thieves was sort of like that, where it was kind of barren at launch. But now you look at Sea of Thieves, and it's got so much to do where, maybe by this time next year, Halo Infinite is top 10. And maybe Microsoft will talk about it again. Maybe Microsoft will show some Halo some love, because they haven't really talked about it or mentioned it at any of their events. They basically released the game and basically turned a blind eye and was just like, we're not talking about Halo Infinite anymore.
I actually asked someone at Xbox about that. Like, why aren't they talking about Halo? Like, it's doing really well. And they were kind of like, we feel like we haven't earned, or we haven't, like, we're not for sure. Basically they were saying like we want to have a few good quarters or a few good seasons under our belt before we can safely be confident that we actually are, where we want to be again, which I think is fair enough, right? But I kind of feel like almost they're selling themselves short a little bit, maybe, but I also understand why they have that mentality, because it'd be bad if they started like talking about how great the game is again, and then like the next season's bad, and then the season after that's bad again.
Yeah, that is true. Right? That is true.
So they want to reach a level of consistency before they start really shouting out about it again.
Yeah, but if you guys are enjoying the show, do us a big favor. Make sure you hit the like button, please, and subscribe if you are new. Appreciate everyone being here on this late Friday. We had to start 2 hours late because of BlizzCon. Which
we have some housekeeping to do.
Yeah, do you want to get to the ad read from Valari, Jez?
Do the shout-outs first.
No, I did the shout-out. I already did the Patreon shout-outs. Did it at the beginning of the show. Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, then, we've got a lovely ad read from our partners at Valari Gaming Pillows. So I'm just going to put the link in the chat for those who are interested. Valari made gaming pillows. They're really awesome. They're kind of based on nursing pillows, but the idea is you put them around your stomach, and they sort of help your spine and your neck, and you can rest your hands more Bro, ergonomically.
Can I just say, I can't not read without them now. Not I use them when I read. Like, I'm reading Finders Keepers by Stephen King right now. I started using the pillow, and it's so comfortable. I tried not using it, and I'm like, no, I need this thing. They got me.
Yeah, I'm the same way with when I'm playing Diablo, especially because like my team, people who watch Gaz's stream or watched Xbox 2 Ultimate this week, they'll have noticed that when I'm gaming, I look really high up, and that's because like I'm squashed into a corner. So in order to have enough space for my laptop and my monitor, I also put like I have to have my TV raised up and stuff like that. But anyway, let's do the ad read. So this is Valari. Thanks so much to Valari to sponsor us. And if you're like me and you enjoy a long gaming session, even if you don't finish games, Rand put that in, then eventually pain and discomfort will start to set in. It could be your shoulders, your neck, maybe your wrists. It all depends on how you sit and try to get comfortable position. But in most cases, it won't be good for your posture, putting unnecessary strain on one body part or another. And like, for real, it's kind of like when you hit 30 and you pretty much do anything, you get them joint pains. And I know Rand's feeling it because he's like 2-3 decades older than me. This is where the Valari gaming pillow steps in, and it's not just any ordinary pillow. It's specifically designed with gamers in mind, providing ergonomic support and cushioning for those long gaming sessions. Picture this. You're deep into an intense gaming session, slaying demons, farming XP, or building that kill streak, and over time, discomfort sets in. Your focus starts to waver. Not with the Valari. Inspired by Nursing Pillow, Valari takes the best features and makes them even better. Valari's ergonomic design also keeps your spine aligned naturally, thereby promoting better posture while you play. Trust us, your older self will thank you for that. The best console game. It is best for console gaming and handhelds like the Switch, Steam Deck, or ROG Ally. The Valari isn't just for gaming, as Rand mentioned. It's a versatile pillow that enhances your comfort while reading, watching movies, or simply relaxing on your couch. Comes in several versions. The Rare, which combines comfort and style at an affordable price. Legendary, which adds a premium touch and a wide variety of color combination and embroidery designs, with a special IP license covers in the works. And launching very soon, the Epic Valari, which is a fully customizable pillow, allowing you to pick the colors, embroidery design, and even add your own gamer tag. So no matter the budget or style, Valari has you covered. Visit Valari.gg or use the link in the description today and experience the difference for yourself. And don't forget to use our special promo code XB2 15% off. That's XB2 at 15% off at Valari.gg. Valari is also conducting a giveaway for their pillows. We can check that out on their website and on their social feeds at the Valari. And with Valari, treat yourself to the ultimate gaming companion. And a huge thank you to Valari for sponsoring this episode of the Xbox 2 podcast.
Yeah. So thank you to Valari for doing the show and sponsoring it. So we have a super chat here from Spectre. Rand Jez are thrown into the arena. You can choose to be any video game character to battle out an epic 1v1. Which character would you choose? Jez, who are you choosing for World of Warcraft or Diablo, I guess?
To battle each other?
No, I don't know. Yeah, I guess me versus you.
Oh, wait. Well, who are you picking? It depends who you pick.
That's a good question. You know what? I'll go with Kratos. You know,
Kratos.
God, can't die sort of thing, you know? Who are you picking?
I don't know, man. I'm going to pick N'Zoth from World of Warcraft because he's a giant eldritch abomination and would eat Kratos for breakfast.
All right, so I guess maybe you would win. Raiden Blade, member for 29 months. Considering I'm not a Blizzard fan, I was impressed with what I saw at BlizzCon. I loved Diablo 4 and can't wait to see where all these games go in the future. And BT Maverick says, can Alan Wake 2 really sweep the rug underneath Zelda and Baldur's Gate 3 for best game of the year? It seems like there's a big swell building for Alan Wake 2 amongst everyone, and it's well-deserved from what I played. And that's an interesting segue, because we're going to talk about Alan Wake 2 and some of the games I've been playing. You know, Jez has been playing Diablo. But that's an interesting question about Alan Wake 2. Because this year is kind of weird when it comes to the Game of the Year nominees, right? Everybody and their mother was like, Zelda's got this on lock when Tears of the Kingdom came out. You know, Don the Otaku would be saying that, right? Nothing's going to beat Zelda. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came out and actually reviewed higher than Zelda. And it's sort of like, and there was a lot of discussion about AAA games and why can't they all be like Baldur's Gate 3? There was that whole thing. And then people were like, well, no, it's on lock. Baldur's Gate 3 is going to win because it's like, what, a 96 or 97 on Metacritic? Mm-hmm. And people sort of accepted that. And it was just like basically everybody's just fighting for a nomination because it's either Baldur's Gate or Zelda. But then here comes Remedy's Alan Wake 2. And, you know, people are talking about Game of the Year. I mean, you guys saw my tweet. I always love tweeting those things about personal opinions because you always get people in there being like, no, it's not, Rand. Alan Wake 2 actually sucks. He's Alan Woke. You know?
Alan Woke.
Yeah, Alan Woke. Or it's like, oh, you know, people laugh or whatever. And it's like, hey, I don't come to your Twitter thread to, you know, when you say something's really good, like someone's like, you know, saying like Spider-Man 2 should be Game of the Year. You don't see me being in there and be like, actually, no, it shouldn't be. Right? Because that's just your opinion. Like, it doesn't bother me when people say something's good or bad. But I just find it funny when people have to interject their own opinions into somebody else's. Right? So I finished Alan Wake 2, Jez. 22 hours, I believe. I did everything, found everything. And the great thing about finding everything in that game, like the collectibles, you get tangible rewards for doing so. Like, I know a lot of games do collectibles, and they're just busy work. You know, Jasant has a lot of collectibles, and it, like, ties into what's going on in the world. Like, that's how you kind of learn the backstory. But it's all just sort of written stuff. Like, you're not really missing much if you don't get the collectibles, outside of maybe like an understanding of the history of the world, right? With Alan Wake, the collectibles, whether it's the nursery rhymes, which are puzzles, give you a charm that actually does something, like may give you an extra charge on your lamp, or maybe you do more damage when your health is low. Or the cult statues, which you find, which can be puzzles, to figure out the combo, and they'll give you supplies. They'll give you ammo, they'll give you flares and stuff. So it's actually something you do want to find, because it actually gives you things. And I always love the collectibles that do that, because they seem worthwhile. It fits well into the theme of Alan Wake 2. So Alan Wake 2 is Game of the Year for me. I don't know what game of the year is for everybody in chat. I don't know what game of the year is, for all of our Patreon members or anybody listening to this later. Everybody's entitled to your opinion. But for Randall Thor 19, me, nothing comes close to Alan Wake 2. Nothing. Granted, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, and I haven't played Zelda. Maybe my opinion would change if I played those. I don't know, and I'm not going to play those games before, the end of this year, most likely. But out of everything I played this year, nothing comes close to the creativity, the craziness, the insanity, the pure spectacle that Remedy has shown here with Alan Wake 2. It is... I was so engaged for every single second I played in this game. And I know, even with what I'm saying, I know it's not a game for everybody, right? It's survival horror. The gameplay is very much reminiscent of Resident Evil Remake, where it's not like Alan Wake 1, which was kind of a third person. It is more
like a thriller.
Well, it was a thriller, but it was the gameplay was definitely more of just a shooty bang, like third person shooty bang game, because you're constantly
Shooty bang.
Yeah, it was just you always had enemies to fight, and you were constantly fighting enemies all the time. And the combat was okay. It was serviceable in that game. I think the reason people liked it was because of the ambiance and the setting and the story, right? All that sort of stuff. I don't think it was because of the gameplay. With Alan Wake 2, they slowed it down. They made each combat encounter more meaningful because there aren't too many of them in the game. So the way the tension is heightened, it sort of fits. I think this style of gameplay fits what Alan Wake better than the gameplay in Alan Wake 1, right? If you played Resident Evil 2 Remake or even Resident Evil 4, you know exactly how the gameplay plays out. But, for a lot of people, it's the vibes that it gives off. It's the story. It's here's Alan Wake returning after 13 years, right? And I've mentioned this before, and this definitely has something to do with it, that when people always ask us questions about what is your dream game, or what is something that you want to happen and it may never will, and it's always tough for me to answer that because I got my dream game. I always said if there's one game that I could bring back from the dead, it's Alan Wake. I wanted to see an Alan Wake 2, and I got Alan Wake 2, and it's exceeded all my expectations. I couldn't be more happier with what they did with this game from start to finish. And now that Alan Wake 2 is here, I mean, if I had to, I want Quantum Break 2 now. Maybe I'm just such a Remedy fan that's like, yeah, give me all these Remedy games that, we may not have gotten. But after playing this, I thought about replaying Control. And now I'm thinking oh my God, I can't wait for Control 2, right? This is Remedy reaching their pinnacle, right? They've always done crazy things. They've always tried to combine the live action stuff, right? And I feel like they finally hit their mark that they've always been going for. The live action stuff in Quantum Break didn't work well because it was outside the game and it wasn't very good, but it's interspersed throughout Alan Wake in a very creative way, and it works perfectly, and it's actually damn good to watch. You will be transfixed by watching it when you see Alan Wake, in his live action self and what's going on in the dark place, because the game's set up in a way where Saga Anderson is the FBI agent, and she's investigating this ritual killing in Bright Falls, and how that eventually ties together with Alan Wake. But then in Alan Wake story segments, you're trying to find a way out of the dark place. So Saga's sections are more detective-y. It's more Resident Evil. Where Alan Wake's sections are a little bit more kind of nuttier and crazier, a little more puzzly, because each character has their own internal place they go to. With Saga, it's the what's it called, the mind place where she hangs clues on the wall and she profiles people. Now, not everybody's gonna like that, for sure. People will find that boring. I know they will. People will find maybe even the beginning of the game where you could play for the first 2 hours and not fire your gun boring. Not everybody's the same. I definitely understand that. But for me, that completely worked. And then Alan has his own mind place. It's called the Writer's Room, which is a great spin on that, where he like puts together his stories. So his sections are always about like changing reality in the scene, because he'll get like a thing of inspiration, and you'll be blocked. You can't move anymore. But then he has this inspiration, and then suddenly the scene changes, and whatever's blocking you is gone. It's a really cool dynamic that they have between the two of them, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody what actually is going on. But yeah, bro, I mean, I still think Baldur's Gate 3 will win, simply because the people that are probably making the decisions all rated it highly. But I think Alan Wake 2 is a masterpiece, dude.
Dude, yeah, I mean, no doubt. But honestly, like, there is a reason the Baldur's Gate will win, and it's not just because it's a trendy to say it's good. It is genuinely incredible, you know. So it's just been a tough year, you know. Like, what the hell do you do when there's like this many high quality games all launching within a single year? It's really strange, you know, that we've had this situation this year, where sort of just so much quality content has come out of nowhere, and it's almost a shame, because there's a lot of stuff that's getting buried, you know. Like War Tales, for example, just hit Xbox Game Pass, and I feel like that's not going to get the attention that it potentially deserves, because of just the abundance of stuff that there is to play on the side. Like, the competition it's just never been this voracious. And yeah, I think it will adjust next year. I don't think 2023 is going to be repeated next year. And like, I saw some charts the other day where it was talking about the levels of investment that the industry is having, and it's like next year it's going to be like vastly reduced and go back to normal, like the way it used to be before the pandemic. So like, yeah, this was a really odd year, an outlier kind of year. And you know, there's still, I'm not to say there's not going to be any great games next year, but I just don't think it's going to be this nuts. And I'm kind of grateful for it, because there's so much I've missed this year. So much I've missed. And, you know, and I have to wonder, like, will I ever get a chance to play that stuff now as I move on to play other games for work or whatever have you.
Yeah.
So.
No, but yeah, Alan Wake 2, masterpiece. I wish I could talk more about it, like spoilers, because obviously the story and what happens factors into it. But I couldn't be happier with that game. And I wanted something different after I beat Alan Wake 2, so I decided to check out Jusant on Gamepass, Jez. From Dontnod. Definitely a different type of game than they normally make. Dontnod's usually the developers of like, or at least the former developers of Life is Strange. This game, it's the climbing game, right? I'm sure people have seen it at the Xbox showcase. It's the one where you all you do is climb, and it looks really good, right? It has that like, it really stands out, like, color wise. And like, the whole game is really, you're just climbing up this mountain. There's no dialogue whatsoever, so you're not really sure what you're doing it. Although, like I said, the collectibles will tell you about like the history of the world and what's really going on. It's all just about climbing. And I will say, in the very beginning, oh boy, like, the controls are a little bit awkward, because like, right trigger controls the right arm, left trigger controls the left arm. And it's, so when you climb, you basically got to left trigger, right trigger, left trigger, right trigger, right? And like, you hold left trigger down, you're like holding on to something. It's sort of very awkward. But after like 30 minutes, it became like second nature. So it's really like a puzzle game. Like, you'll do some climbing, and then you'll figure out like, where do I need to go next? And I always liked it in games where you go long distances, and then you look behind you, or you're standing above and you look down, and you're like, man, that's where I started the game from. Like, look how far I've always enjoyed that aspect of games where it's like, you know, it's not interspersed levels, but it's like a huge thing. It's like, oh man, like, that's where the game started. I was all the way back there. Look how high I am. And the game, like, each chapter will introduce more mechanics to help you climb the mountain. Like, you have this little cute little creature with you, and when you press up on the D-pad, There are a couple like plants that will grow or sprout buds that you can then climb to, or little flies that will get around you that will lift you up because you can like double jump when you're climbing. So there's always something that adds on for the challenge. But really, it was just a nice, chill vibes game. Just walking around, taking in the vistas, and learning about the world, and then figuring out where to go and how to get there. And not long, I think it was like 5 hours. But it's, I guess it'd be one of those things where you could say it's totally a Rand game. That sort of
trending.
I wouldn't, no, not trending. People would say like walking sim or whatever. This is a climbing sim, but I don't know. There's just something
about the vibe and the
it's the vibe. It's like just you're just there and you're just I don't know. Like I just really enjoy those type of games, and it was considering like Dotnod doesn't make this type of stuff. I was like, this is actually really good. So if you haven't played it, check it out. You will have some issues with the controls in the beginning, but I definitely think it's worth checking out. Like I quite enjoyed it by the end, and I haven't really played much of it. I only got to play around an hour of RoboCop, so I will say, because you asked me if it was any good, and my initial thoughts after an hour are it's not good, but it's not bad. It's kind of in that just okay area, but what it does really well is it makes you feel like RoboCop. It makes you feel like you are the walking tank, and it is bloody, right? You'll walk into a room and there'll be like 7 enemies, and your targeting cursor highlights them all in the movies, and you're just mowing them down, or you punch somebody and they explode, or you throw something, right? So it does a really, really good job of making you feel, it's that power fantasy of you're just an indestructible machine. But then like everything else about it, like the dialogue or like the way the game looks, it's pretty bad. Especially the dialogue, you can tell, but it's like a $60 game, so it's not like it's $40. It's a full price game. But I mean, I'm only an hour in, so maybe there's more nuance to the game. But yeah, I'll probably finish this and Modern Warfare 3 this week. And then after that, it's probably Cyberpunk time, maybe. Time to get into some Cyberpunk.
Finally.
Yeah.
God.
So, yeah, but it's been a busy year for gaming, bro.
It has been.
God, I love Alan Wake 2. If I can
tell.
I love it so much. I love it so much. Seriously, I've even like watched reactions. I'll go on Twitch and I'll watch reactions for some of the streamers that I like, just to see how they reacted to segments, how they reacted to the scene. I'm sure you've heard about it. How there's a 15-minute scene in Alan Wake 2, which is incredible and one of the best scenes in a long time in a video game. So that's the thing that speaks to me about this game is they must have had a blank check, because each chapter the game ends, there's a music, there's like a song that plays, and I think all the songs were commissioned by Remedy, so they're all made for the game essentially, and they're all like about Alan Wake in some manner, and they're all actually really good, right?
This is why I say you need to watch Twin Peaks, because
I know
that is a David Lynch thing.
I know it totally is. I mean, but Remedy did that with Alan Wake 1, where each chapter ended. But I'm just saying, like, it really seems that like they get a blank check from Epic to do what they want, because there are some choices and some creative things in here that probably you wouldn't see in other AAA games by any other publisher. Like looks like they were basically said, here's the money, make whatever you want. And they literally made the most crazy, awesome thing you can imagine. They
Tom, I can't remember his name. Thomas from their PR and marketing team at Remedy. He was shouting up Epic Games and saying like it was the best publisher they'd worked with, or something along those lines, and that like they were really helpful and awesome and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of made me think like this is like really cool that Epic has done this, considering like what they're kind of they're not known for publishing games, right?
No, I think this is really their first one. They started the initiative, and this might have been the first Epic published game that's come out.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because it could represent like a new revenue stream for Epic that's sort of trying to find itself in a world where Fortnite maybe isn't the eternal cash cow that they thought it might have been, you know. And I know that Fortnite is actually blowing up again right now because they just announced the Fortnite OG, which is literally Fortnite Classic, basically like the original game revived or whatever, which I think is really, really interesting that we're at that point now where Fortnite is retro, maybe. But it's yeah, it was exciting to see Epic fund this, and I almost I want two outcomes of this. Like besides the fact that Alan Wake 3 should definitely happen, unless you know you can't for some reason. But I'd love to see Alan Wake 3 with Epic's backing. One, Alan Wake 3, and then two, I'd like to see. It would be cool if they bring some real competition to Steam as a result of this.
Oh, that's
And
not
like that's
not happening.
yeah, well, yeah,
That's
but like
one of the
that's
reasons
not to say,
one of the
that's not
reasons
to
I'm
say,
one of the reasons I'm concerned about Alan Wake 2 is because I think PC gamers don't want to deal with Epic Store, and this game's never going to be on Steam. So like in a year from now, it won't be on Steam like other Epic exclusives, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So I can see sales on PC being extremely low because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there is that aspect of it, but what I mean is like it, maybe competition's the wrong word. But if Epic starts doing this frequently, and there is like say for example, Epic gets to a point where they're doing one great game per year in the vein of Alan Wake. And they do get to a point where like, yeah, maybe they don't replace Steam. I can't see them ever replacing Steam. Of course not. The Steam's entrenched. But what if there's a world where people are more willing to use it alongside Steam, you know? And then and then um and then maybe Steam might wake up a little bit and maybe Steam will start actually making games again, unlike, you know, I'm talking about Half-Life and Portal and stuff like that, and not just like the service games that they've become sort of known for now. But yeah, it's cool anyway, and whatever happens, you know, I just hope that it does well for Remedy and hopefully Epic Games as well, and that it inspires them to do more of it. Because, like you say, I don't think this. I couldn't see this kind of game coming out of from EA. Weird, sort of heavily TV inspired kind of stuff. That's Remedy, man. They're super unique and awesome, and
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe Microsoft will give them the Quantum Break license back, so
I mean,
they can do Quantum Break.
there's some Quantum Breaky things in here. I mean, like there's even Max. I mean, Sam Lake's in the game as Detective Alex Casey because Alan Wake has this detective hero called Alex Casey. So it's Sam Lake, but the voice is is Max Payne's voice. They got the Max Payne voice actor. So it's literally Sam Lake, who was the body model for Max Payne 1 and 2, right? With the voice of Max Payne himself. It's even though it's Alec Casey, it's clearly a stand-in for Max Payne, right? Because you can't call him Max Payne, right? And then Sean Ashmore's in the game as the sheriff of Bright Falls, and he's the main character from Quantum Break. So I mean, they clearly
really have the same personality as Max Payne though.
No. Well, you haven't played as Alan yet, have you?
No, not yet. Oh,
because
right.
yes,
I'm literally on the edge of playing as Alan right now.
Because one of the things that is very interspersed throughout.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah,
don't spoil it.
That the Alex Casey in Saga story is not Max Payne, but yeah, you haven't gotten to Alan's story yet.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay.
But anyways, love Alan Wake 2. People, please go play it. Love it so much. I could gush about that game for hours. Yeah, so Jez, you want to talk about BlizzCon?
Sure, talk about it a little bit, because I think the issue is that a lot of people just aren't that interested in our audience about Blizzard stuff.
Sure. So I mean, you can just mention what they announced, and we can move on. But yeah, like BlizzCon happened today. It's the reason why the show was delayed 2 hours. I knew, like I said that to you yesterday. I'm like, we should just delay it because I know Did you have a lot of fun watching it? Because I know you were happy watching that.
Yeah, I was really happy watching it, and it was an awesome show, and I'm really excited for what they announced personally. But also, I was running the live blog, so it would have been feasible. You would have heard me slamming the keyboard.
Well, I mean, I can
You know,
hear
I
you
will.
slamming your D-pad when you play Diablo, regardless. So,
Oh, right, even now.
oh yeah, bro. I mean, I just tune it out at this point. But I saw Gene Park say that. Like, I love the Xbox controller, but the D-pads are all clickety clackety. And like you responded to him, and you're like, "Yeah, I know," or you said something about it, and I was just like, "Yeah, we can." Everybody can hear Jez play Diablo during the podcast because. Do you use the D-pad that much in the game? Do people not use analog sticks?
It's not the D-pad; it's the analog stick.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah. What happened at BlizzCon?
So I suppose the biggest news at BlizzCon was it was a very Xbox oriented show. There was a bunch of Xbox iconography in the show. And I honestly wasn't sure that they'd go all in on linking Xbox to Blizzard this early. But I think Microsoft's really eager to be like, yeah, we're here and address it at least. So Mike Ibarra was presenting, and I think it's the first time Mike Ibarra has ever presented in person. Well, of course it is, because the last BlizzCon was 4 years ago. So there was that aspect of it. So seeing Mikey Barr on stage, and then Phil came out and he shook Phil's hand, and he was saying "my friend" and all this kind of stuff. And that was kind of like it was kind of like I don't know. It felt very intentional.
Mm.
Phil and Mike should share the stage and shake hands and stuff, and just sort of like symbolic of the partnership between Xbox and Microsoft. But also like there was some speculation about how Mike left Microsoft and whether there was bad blood or whether there was some kind of, something that happened behind the scenes that nobody really knows about. So there's that aspect of it, the symbolism. But then Phil came out and he was just kind of like, shouting out the games. And I know Phil plays Diablo. I've seen him on Xbox Live playing Diablo, even though he never invites me to play. And damn you, Phil. And 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 he mentioned StarCraft and all this kind of stuff, and then that sort of kicked into the show. I suppose the most annoying thing about the show is that there was an abundance of airtime dedicated to either recapping or mobile games, and I think that made the show drag. Like, I think maybe they thought like a lot of Xbox fans will be tuning into this for the first time, and like we wanna reiterate some of the stuff we're doing, which maybe is fair enough. But for the people, the hardcore Blizzard fans that were at the show, they knew all everything that's going on with Diablo, Overwatch, or whatever. They didn't really need a recap for it. So I think they spent way too much time focusing on that. And also, like, I get why they wanted to spend the time on mobile, because Hearthstone and Warcraft Rumble, these are not outsourced games. They internally develop those mobile games, which honestly is not. It's kind of rare in a way for these kind of games to not be outsourced to your Tencent or your NetEase or like a company like that. So it's totally fair they wanted to demonstrate what their teams have been working on and give those guys the time in the limelight, because they totally deserve it. But I understand why, like, maybe the Blizzard hardcore fans weren't that interested. But anyway, I digress. For Xbox fans, I suppose the cool thing, the only real thing of interest for Xbox fans was the Diablo expansion they announced. So next year they'll do the first story expansion for Diablo, which will continue the story from Diablo 4, which was, very good. And I think that's why Diablo scored so highly, because the story was really good, really dark, had great cinematics and all that kind of stuff. And they'll continue that tradition with, following the story of Mephisto into the next expansion. But beyond that, they also announced World of Warcraft expansions. And it was special to me because Chris Metzen's back.
Mm-hmm.
So
was
Chris
was that the
Metzen-
dude on stage talking about it, or was that Chris Metzen?
Yeah, Chris Metzen. Now, Chris Metzen is an industry legend. He co-founded Blizzard, and he co-created World of Warcraft, and like not just World of Warcraft, but Warcraft. The original Warcraft. He conceptualized the entire universe. So it's really his baby, right? He's the voice actor for Thrall and Deathwing and a load of the characters too. So like he's sort of like a legend in the industry, but also a legend in World of Warcraft. And now he's a Microsoft employee, within Xbox, and he's also so charismatic. Like when he's on stage, he's kind of like the Todd of Activision or Activision Blizzard almost. He's just so charismatic when he's speaking. You watch the guy, man, and he's commanded the crowd. He's like a rock star, man. He's awesome. So like it was special for Warcraft fans because of that, because it's like symbolic again of Chris Metten's back. Everything's gonna be okay. But then they're like, we're not just announcing one expansion. This time we're announcing entire story arcs. So they announced like this. We're calling this the World Soul Saga, and we're announcing 3 expansions instead of 1. So this is like over the next 6 years maybe of content, and I think the intention there is to sort of, because what World of Warcraft's been doing, Rand, is developing each expansion in its own silo. So the story's been really disjointed, but now they're planning the story out over years instead of just developing it and then moving on to the next one and moving on to the next one. I think it's very exciting, and I will dovetail into the Bungie topic, Rand, because I think Bungie could probably benefit from doing this too. Is like maybe having more of a long-term plan for it rather than just focusing on the next thing or the next couple of things. World of Warcraft's kind of like, we're going to focus on the next 6 years worth of stuff. And I thought what was really cool as well with what Chris Metzen was saying was, he's like, because he retired, right? And he didn't leave for another company. He retired. He just went off and did his own thing for a while. And then he was just like, I missed this work. And he was saying like, one thing I realize is I love Warcraft, and I really miss this. And I thought that was so like kind of inspiring, because it was just sort of like, he didn't just go off, and he's come back for the fans and stuff. And I often imagine like, because we talk about people like Phil retiring, right, Rand? Or like Todd Howard retiring and stuff like that. And we imagine some of these, sort of characters who are sort of responsible for the game worlds we love, and accepting that, maybe they'll retire. Todd Howard's made a lot of money from selling Bethesda. Probably, I would imagine he would have had some shares. If he retires, then
he may not want to retire. He may just
but that's the thing. Like he may not want to retire. He may just be like Chris Metzen and be like, well, actually, I want to try and make Elder Scrolls as good as it possibly can be, or Fallout as good as it possibly can be. But anyway, that was pretty much the show. And I think, there was some expectation that Odyssey would be there. There was some expectation that maybe even StarCraft would be there, or like some of these other dormant franchises. Like Blizzard updated Heroes of Storm recently, so a lot of people were thinking like, oh man, maybe Heroes of Storm is a thing. But there wasn't actually a lot of like actual new games there. And it was annoying because they actually put in the title of the live thing for new game announcements, but they didn't actually announce any new games. They announced expansions for games, but they didn't announce any new games, even though it said new games and now new game announcements in the title of the YouTube video. So while it would have been cool if there was more new stuff, especially stuff for console players, it was really important BlizzCon because it was just kind of like, we're now part of Xbox. Here's Phil Spencer. Here's Xbox logo at the end of the show, which also was a bit of a surprise. And the future's bright, right? It was so weird thinking like, do you remember like, oh man, when I can't remember which E3 it was, but there was an E3 where Rod Ferguson presented, Mikey Barra presented, and Phil presented. I think it must have been like for Gears 4 or 5 back in the day.
Yeah, it was 26. Well, let's see. Phil was on, so yeah, it would have been 2015. All 3 of them, probably, because Phil would have been there. Mike would have announced the back compat, right, where he was playing Mass Effect on stage, and I think that would have been the year they announced Gears Ultimate.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I know Rod was on stage playing what, like Gears 4, but that was 2016. And was Mike on stage in 2016? He might have been.
Yeah, I don't know, but the point was like, it was just so surreal seeing like Phil, Mike, and Rod on stage presenting for another company while also now being part of Xbox. It was surreal, man, for me as someone who's an Xbox fan but also a Blizzard fan, and a Rod Ferguson and Mikey Barra fan as well, I guess. It just feels so surreal and different. And I think for me, it was like the first time this had really sank in that Xbox is so big now.
Yeah.
It's so big.
They got all these live
Yeah.
services now, right? World of Warcraft. You kind of think like you mentioned 3, which I did watch the CGI. Dude, Blizzard, their CGI trailers are second to none. And I saw
They're the best, and that's all in house. That's
yeah,
all
I
in-house.
saw that one
Microsoft
dude
now
say
own.
that like, hey, now that I'm part of Xbox, I want to make one of these for Gears. And I'm like, yes, please, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you think about like a lot of people listening to this show, maybe they aren't huge Blizzard fans or whatever, and that's why like my hype, I overhyped it because I was hyped about it and I enjoyed the show. And I have to remember that like a lot of people here they don't really play PC games that much or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But the thing is, this is gonna have implications way beyond Blizzard's PC games, because you're gonna get potentially an expansion of Blizzard's cinematics team, and maybe we start seeing like Microsoft build cinematics for all of its games in house. Now they've got all that technology and all that talent and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that they have their hands full working on cinematics for Blizzard's games, whether it's the incredible cinematics in Diablo. And I don't know if I doubt you played Diablo Resurrected, but they redid all the cinematics for Diablo Resurrected, and they were absolutely mind-blowing. The game was almost worth playing just to get to those cinematics, even though the gameplay itself is really, really dated. Or compared to modern Diablo or whatever. But yeah, it was just an exciting show as an Xbox fan and someone who's been following Blizzard and Xbox professionally for the last 10 years. It felt like a real turning point, and that's why I was really excited about it. And I'm sorry if people felt like I overhyped the show, but I was really excited for it. And I knew Phil was going to be there. I didn't know he was going to be there to do, which I kind of expected Odyssey to be there. Not that I had any hard evidence of it. I just kind of expected of it. Like the timelines made sense, right? But yeah, I enjoyed it, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what projects of Blizzard's actually show up at the Xbox showcase in June or July or whenever they decide to have it. Yeah. Presumably June, right?
Presumably June. Yeah.
That was it. That was BlizzCon.
That was BlizzCon. All right. Are you going to be watching any more? Because I know they got panels throughout all today and tomorrow. Or is it you're just pretty much done with it? You just wanted to watch the keynote?
No. I'll be watching. They've done a Warcraft panel during the show where they sort of get in the panels. They get into like the finer details, and we find out like this is what this is the lore of this, or this is the lore of that. They'll probably talk story details for the next Diablo expansion, or maybe even talk about like major features they're trying to add to it, and and tease what's going to come. We're going to be live blogging those too. But yeah, I'll be checking out the Diablo and Warcraft panels for sure. Not really interested in Hearthstone and Rumble, even though like I have been playing Warcraft Rumble. I played it all night yesterday. I played it for about 6 hours instead of sleeping last night. It is really, really addictive. It's a really, really addictive game. It is just it's Clash Royale but with PvE. So I'm told. I've never actually played Clash Royale myself, but Clash Royale's like sort of like an auto battler MOBA. You position the units where you want them to go, and they just sort of move towards the enemy base and automatically attack it. But like you can spawn counter units and pull off all these kind of strategies. There's loads of different little robots to collect, and it's really good and really addictive. And it was trending #1 in the store. And this is what Microsoft bought the company for, really. And yeah, they've got the big service games. They've got the big service games, and your Call of Duties and your Crash Bandicoots and your Tony Hawks and Guitar Hero and whatever. But really, this was about solidifying Microsoft and Xbox's presence in the mobile space, which is dominated by Apple and Google. Apple and Google, they make all the money from these platforms, but now Microsoft has the clout to be like, well, actually, maybe we can make our own store, and that will like again subsidize Xbox hardware, Xbox consoles, and similarly to how Epic Games has its cash cow with Fortnite, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they use Fortnite to subsidize other things they want to do, like the Epic Game Store. And yeah, it doesn't always work out. And I suppose like it's like Facebook too. Like Facebook uses Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp. Well, not so much WhatsApp because WhatsApp has like virtually no monetization that I'm aware of. But they use their ads platform on Instagram and Facebook to subsidize their Meta VR aspirations, right? So like with Xbox getting all this extra money in, yeah, they're gonna make more games, but also it'll subsidize potentially the console. It'll subsidize potentially new hardware paradigms or other stuff, and it'll just have this cascading effect for Xbox fans over everything. Back in the day, I remember like back in like 2017, Rand, we were talking about like how there were debates about how Xbox has got no budget left and all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
None of that. There's none of that now.
Yep.
Xbox has subsidized forever because of mobile now. And that's the world we live in, and I think that's really exciting. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I do. I do think, with Thing to Odyssey, because I think you expected it to be there, and I sort of expected it to be there, right? And we always had the simple debate about whether the exclusivity of it, right? Where you said it would be multi-platform, and I said it would be exclusive just to be different than you, right? Because I don't know, and you don't know if it is or if it isn't. Like, we could see it being multi-plat simply because like maybe the business model is what it is, but there's a part of me that thinks it not being announced here, but it potentially being announced at an Xbox show in June raises the chances of it being exclusive. Maybe.
I think you're right. I think there is an outside chance maybe that it could be exclusive if they're not announcing it here and they do want to announce it at the Xbox show instead. And I think like it would be it's not a franchise that has a history on PlayStation.
That's true.
It's not like Minecraft, and you put all your Minecraft games on PlayStation because Minecraft, whatever. This is going to be completely new IP with a new name that nobody's aware of. The only continuity it has with Blizzard is the fact that there'll be the Blizzard Entertainment logo on when you boot the game up. But beyond that, it's nothing new. So maybe you're right. Maybe this does raise the chance of it being exclusive. Personally, I still believe this will be multi-platform. Personally, but
fair enough.
I will say I agree that this does potentially raise the chances of it being exclusive, but we'll only know when it's announced or when someone leaks it, I guess.
Yeah, Noob Sabat says in the super chat, people have such rich memories. I've never seen a service game that doesn't have initial issues and drop off. Name one. You can't. I mean, they all seem to have. I mean, Apex Legends was kind of top tier right away. I mean, it did, eventually it ran into issues, but I mean, yeah, a lot of them go through growing pains, but not all of them come back. We've seen a lot of games as a service titles basically get turned off this year, unless you're the big ones. That's why people don't like games as a service, because they feel like, oh,
you lose your stuff. Can you imagine if like for example, this actually happened in China recently because Blizzard had a prolific falling out with NetEase. And what happened? What happened when they fell out? NetEase just went ahead and deleted the servers. And there are people in China who've been, love WoW as much as me, or even more maybe, who've been playing World of Warcraft in China for literally over a decade. And they had characters that they had for over a decade. And without ceremony, all those characters and all that content and all those servers were just unceremoniously wiped, by NetEase or whatever. Or who, I think it was NetEase. I don't think it was Blizzard who would have done that. But and that's the downside of a service game. You rent the game at the end of the day.
True.
So
we have let's see what else we got here. We have let's see, I got everything. Meat Puppet says Rand, unlike Jez and Scalebound, finishes his games. Lol, good show. Scalebound mention, of course. Rodham Design, member 36 months, says rarely get the chance to drop in. Rand, interested to know if you played Alan Wake 2 in 60 or 30 FPS mode. For me, I'm 30 FPS and it feels great. I switched around a lot. Usually, like the exploration, if there's a lot of cutscenes happening, I was in 30. Combat feels infinitely better at 60, but I think eventually, after a bit, I just kept it on 60 because it just felt it was. I don't know, like I didn't. It even to me, like I feel like in some instances, like the 60 frames maybe helps it look better. Although I could definitely tell when you flipped it from 30 to 60, like what you would lose. The combat, you know what's interesting? You know, you have a dodge with Alan where on left bumper when people attack you, and you're supposed to dodge at the last minute to like kind of activate the cinematic dodge. And I could not get that to work on 30 frames. I switched it to 60 one time and got it the first try. I was trying. I was like, I cannot activate it because there was like an achievement for doing it, and I couldn't get it. I tried like 10 times in the 30 FPS mode. It just wouldn't work. I switched it to 60, and the very first time I dodged, got it right away. I'm like, oh, okay, well.
So you did play it at 30?
I did. I told you I switched. I was switching back and forth. I would play it at 30 for a bit, and then I would switch it to 60 when there was combat because you could switch it on the fly, right? And be like, oh, it's I'm exploring. There's no enemies. Let me explore in 30. But eventually, I just kept it on 60 and played it that way. Space Dovikin says, member for 30 months. He says, Xbox now needs to streamline the tools. Now with COD and Doom engines, they can make a super engine. Something cutting engine and easy to develop. I mean, they could, but I don't know if they necessarily will. Although they have talked about having a game engine, but maybe it doesn't want to sell theirs to people, or doesn't want to staff up to be able to like essentially have a support staff for other companies using the id engine. Essentially,
I tell you one thing, right? What someone told me, because I was asking a bunch of industry figures about when all that Unity stuff kicked off over the summer. And for those that can't remember, Unity increased its prices over the summer like exponentially, and like indie devs were really mad about it, rightfully so, because Unity completely upended thousands of business models overnight by saying like, okay, now you have to factor in all these annoying price changes. And this is an industry figure that I really respect and who knows a lot about the business, has helped me understand the gaming business over the years. And this person was like, you gotta understand, like the whole like the business of selling an engine is not actually that lucrative, and this is why like there's only a few companies that do it, and and pretty much there's only Epic Games that can really do it on that scale, and that Unity has never turned a profit. And if you actually look at Unity's financials, they're just not profitable. They've had like 2 profitable quarters since they went public. And they're still trying to find how to make their platform and their engine actually profitable, And when you're a publicly traded company, that's an issue, It's an issue for your investors if it's like, oh well, this is not profitable, so why should I invest? And for people who are there holding the bag, they're like potentially, there's hedge funds that fund it, and whatever, it's rich people's money, whatever, but there's people who invest their pensions in this stuff, and there's pension funds that are tied to investments like this. So, if you're an investor and your job is to create a return on investing in people's money, at the end of the day, you want to hope those companies actually turn a profit. So that's where a lot of this comes from. And yeah, Microsoft, like there's almost like a reason where I almost feel like Microsoft has deliberately skirted going beyond just, licensing out APIs and physics models and things like that, because doing the engine stuff, maybe it's just not particularly lucrative, or it's too difficult or something like that. It's interesting to talk about though, and Microsoft does have a lot of engines in-house they could potentially use now. Like there's just a mountain of engines they've got.
True.
But a lot of these only work when the people who are using the engines really know how to use them. Like, the Overwatch engine, that's like a unique engine. And from what I understand, Project Odyssey, the survival game, is built in that engine. So, you gotta have documentation, you gotta have training, and you've gotta You gotta have all this kind of stuff if you wanna, if you want to sell an engine. You better sure as hell, have all that infrastructure in place to help people actually bloody well use it. And then it's like, well, what if all these plugins don't exist and these tools don't exist for it? Why don't we just use Unreal Engine, or hell, make our own damn engine? Which a lot of devs are doing after what Unity pulled over the summer. But yeah, it's complicated, the engine stuff, and yeah, I don't know if Microsoft will do it, but hey, who knows?
Yeah, we have one here from AXN Arcade. I really love the new World of Warcraft cinematic trailer, but the feature trailer looked stale. I really wish they used those epic characters for new games. Nice catching you live for a change. Cheers from Italy. Well, cheers from Chicago. And
Thanks
cheers
for
from
joining
Germany,
us.
as Jez is in Germany.
Indeed. I'm in Germany. Yeah.
Jax82. What? You have someone else you want to say that?
I was just gonna say, like, I heard this a few times today, where people were just like, yeah, the sort of Blizzard's graphics are tough to swallow if you're not used to them, for World of Warcraft, because it's a 20-year-old engine. It's older than 20 years if you count the beta and the development of the game. But yeah, but it helps them build the game quickly, and we're actually talking about this on Xbox 2 Ultimate a little bit. I suppose we'll get into it again when we get to the Destiny section, but World of Warcraft not being photorealistic really helps them pump out content quickly to it. You're building a game like Destiny, which is photorealistic, then more expensive, you got more overheads, more difficult to monetize, that kind of stuff.
Or easier to monetize. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jax says, Rand and Jez, do you think studios like Remedy and CD Projekt Red will remain independent when being exclusive could come with its challenges? I mean, if they want to remain independent, they can. I mean, the problem nowadays is you have one bomb that could, like, look at, we're gonna talk about the Destiny stuff. Essentially, what happened with Destiny was it missed. They were starting to miss their targets, and essentially, maybe even the solvency of the studio, if it wasn't for the PlayStation acquisition, would have been in question, right? So if you're making a game, whether you're Remedy or you're CD Projekt Red, and you have a bomb, you might be looking for acquisitions at that point to save you, right? Because, if Alan Wake 2 is not a success for Epic, maybe Epic doesn't want to work with them again, and nobody else wants to publish an Alan Wake 2 because, it's not like Alan Wake 1 was a success. It was a cult hit. Right? It's like, well, who was really going to fund an Alan Wake 2? Not many people. But here's Epic wanting to get into the publishing arena. They do it. It's a critical success, but is it a commercial one? And, granted, it's not Remedy's money. They're not like self-publishing it. But then maybe that has ramifications if you have this huge bomb where you can't get funding from other people or whatever for your games, and then you're looking for outside investments. You're looking for maybe private equity firms. You're looking for like a Tencent or a Microsoft or PlayStation to come in. You never know. Like one game could change the fate of your company, right? Sure. And that goes for like any company essentially now. Because like when you look at like all the problems that Bungie's had, like Bungie. Yeah, I guess we could talk about the Bungie stuff. They had some layoffs, which were not pretty. I think they laid off like 9% of their staff, which is like 100 people. And some of the sort of details are like people didn't know until it happened, and those sort of things that happen in corpo culture, right? Where it's like you're fired, but nobody really knows until it's like, oh, by the way, your key card no longer works as you're coming into the office or whatever. Yeah. And this is a company that was also just acquired by PlayStation a year ago, right around the time that Xbox acquired Activision. And, also this was the company that was essentially reviewing all of PlayStation's other games as a services, as we've heard from, Jason Schreier. Like, they're the ones that played Factions and said it wasn't good enough and put it on ice. Were they the ones that played Deviation's game and said it wasn't good enough? That basically led to its supposed cancellation? I don't know. But the reason PlayStation bought Bungie was because of Jim Ryan's vision of games as a service for the PlayStation ecosystem, needing that revenue, wanting to show growth to investors, and they bought Bungie because they wanted to use their expertise with Destiny 2, because it's a long-running, very successful MMO shooter. Not many of them in the space. And they were going to leverage their brain power to essentially help out and with their strategy on these other studios, right? Even though we haven't really seen any of it come to fruition, we've seen a lot of the cancellations, and then it seems like Bungie themselves is having this huge problem, and it seems like the layoffs resulted from Bungie missing out on their revenue projections for the year by a staggering 45%, which is a lot. A lot. And they had to delay the final shape, which is like the last big Destiny 2 DLC, which is now coming in June after it's supposed to be in February. Also, Marathon looks like it's been delayed to 2025, although that never had a date anyways. And I didn't expect it until 2025. So that's further out at this point. And they laid off like people who have been there for 20 years, and they laid off people that would kind of like deliver this news to fans in a way that, a good way. Instead, they laid those people off. They laid off, like, I think supposedly they laid off Michael Salvatore, legendary composer, and a whole bunch of people from different aspects of the studio. And it's just another thing of like, man, 2023, great year for games. Maybe one of the better years ever. But when it comes to the industry, a lot of problems. Yes. I think like 6,000 developers have been let go. And now you look at Bungie, a studio that was just acquired, and they're having issues. And it just goes to show you, like, sometimes you're on top of the mountain, and then the next moment you're falling down that mountain, right? Everybody, like, they had this core audience for people who played Destiny 2, and they put out a really subpar, at least talking to some Destiny fans I know, what happened was they had these insane pre-orders for Lightfall. And I think that's where a lot of their revenue projections for the game came from. And Lightfall came out. It was the first expansion that came out under PlayStation. It came out, and it wasn't good at all. People said it was pretty much trash. And because of how bad it was, so when it launched, I think Destiny 2 had its like highest concurrency ever. Like, people came back to the game. People were so excited for it. Their numbers were super high. And then because of how bad it was, everybody left. Even the hardcore people left. So all of a sudden, like, you're projecting big things for your game because you have these really high pre-orders. You have these really high concurrency numbers, and you think all these people playing your game means more people will spend money. But then because they didn't like the campaign, all these people just left. And now if you look at the numbers, like, they're not very high anymore. People have abandoned the game. And because they've abandoned the game, well, nobody's spending any money. So now it's like, what do? We basically, with one expansion and some of our other, like seasons they do, we've lost our user base. And, we were 800 people. We got other games in development. Our cash flow's impacted. I did see Paul Tassi today say that if it wasn't for Sony's acquisition, then if Bungie was still independent, then maybe the studio might have went under, essentially.
Jeez.
It's kind of like crazy to think about, right? And you look at like PlayStation strategy versus Microsoft's, where, PlayStation has like single player cinematic games on lock, and that's one of the reasons people love them. But clearly that's not enough for them. It wasn't enough for Jim Ryan. It's not enough for the bigwigs at PlayStation. They want more, because what company doesn't always want more? They want more monthly active users. They want more revenue. They want more profit, and their investors want to see growth so they can get a bigger return on their investment, right? And it's like, all right, we're gonna do games as a service, but nobody does games as a service. Oh, it's funny when I say that, because people always throw shade that Xbox was the one that sort of introduced like monetization in first party games, like with Halo or with like Forza or whatever, but then forget all the pay to win aspects that Naughty Dog would have in their multiplayer games. Like people forget that Naughty Dog had multiplayer in like all the Uncharted games except the first one and the Last of Us game. And, you know, some of the shady microtransactions that people hate in the Gran Turismo series, right?
I think I didn't even know that when we talked about it before.
Yeah, I mean, Last of Us had a... Yeah, because you were like, Last of Us didn't have a multiplayer mode. I'm like, it did, and the microtransactions
I knew it had a
awful.
I knew it had multiplayer, but I didn't know it had microtransactions.
Like, everybody was doing that, right? But Sony wanted more games as a service, and here's like Microsoft, who already has a collection of games as a service experiences from Sea of Thieves. Grounded just got its new update. Playground update coming out later this month, where it's basically Forge mode, where you can just build whatever you want in your playground and share it with the community. You got Halo Infinite clawing its way back. Forza Motorsport just came out, will hit its new seasons. Forza Horizon 5 is still, I think, just hit 34 million players. Right? Those are just from Xbox Game Studios themselves. Microsoft Flight Sim still doing work. Then you add stuff from Bethesda, you know, like Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76. Starfield's going to be played for years to come. And then you add Activision Blizzard and you get Warcraft, you get Diablo, you get Overwatch, you get all this sort of stuff. You get Call of Duty. And it's sort of like you get mobile stuff with Warcraft Rumble and Candy Crush and COD Mobile. And it just sort of is like, well, man, like when it comes to games as a service, like who clearly has the better plan here, right? I think Xbox. We don't know how any of Sony's games will turn out, but yeah, this was an eye-opening, Jez, wasn't it? The problems that what Bungie was facing.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, it was and it wasn't. Like I've never really. I tell you, man. I'd said before that I'd heard Xbox was talking about in talks to maybe acquire Bungie, and I'd heard that Microsoft felt that Bungie had asked for too much money, and that kind of rang alarm bells with me. That Microsoft did its due diligence and found that it didn't have a faith in the longevity of Destiny's business plan. And I'm someone who like I've played Destiny, and I'm sort of one of those people who was really excited for it, like MMO, but with like. But basically, serious Borderlands is what I was hoping the game would be, because I always like the idea of Borderlands, but I don't like the humor. I think Borderlands is just horrendously cringe, the writing. That's just me though. But so like, oh okay, so serious Borderlands, let's go. And I remember like a lot of people forget now, like when they first announced that game, they were talking about like, oh, like you see those mountains, you can go there. There's like, actually, well, you can't go there. You can't go to those mountains at all. Why did you say that? And like some of the you know some of the things that Starfield got dinged for, like the world, you can't fly around through space continuously, and you can't like everything's sort of in isolated instances and stuff like that. Like those are the things that I felt I got burned with Destiny back in the day, but at least with Starfield, they were pretty upfront about saying, like, look, this isn't a simulator, whatever. But Destiny did say you could go to those mountains. Like, I remember distinctly. And I felt burned by that back in the day. So I bounced off Destiny pretty quick because I just thought the gameplay that was really boring. And I couldn't help but constantly compare it to World of Warcraft, which has mountains of content constantly. And Destiny's content cycle was just far slower and less interesting, I felt, than what I was getting out of other similar games. So I bounced off that. I bounced off that really hard. So I've never had a particularly favorable view of Destiny because of that. And I'm not begrudging anyone who does or anyone who is a fan of Destiny and its potential or whatever. But I just feel like that's it. The game's just like has all this potential, and you think like this should really work. This should really work, and it should be really great. But I almost wonder if like maybe the game just doesn't work as a sort of like maybe the margins just aren't there to justify the overheads, like the dedicated servers, photorealistic art, making it take ages to make new content. There's no subscription, so you've got like those overheads you've got to soak through the Eververse or whatever. and to offset costs, you have to like double down, triple down, quadruple down on the Eververse, which just pisses everyone off, right? And then you start to wonder, like, does this business model work? Does a photorealistic MMO with dedicated servers, does this actually work? Or maybe should they have gone with something more finite like Borderlands, where instead of, you know, creating the expectation this game's going to go on forever and ever and ever, maybe you just release sequels more often and do it that way instead. But I don't know, man. I mean, some of this stuff it's hard for me to comment on because I'm not that familiar with the state of Destiny. And like you, I spoke to people in the community to get their take on it, like trusted people who do play Destiny, like Paul Tassi and Cognito. I know is a big Destiny guy as well. And like you, I spoke to some people who were talking about it there, and it just sounds like Destiny's been a bad place for a long time, and sort of been struggling to find its mojo. That being said, World of Warcraft also went through this. They had like back-to-back terrible expansions that nobody really liked, and that caused the player base to dwindle. And they're reporting to investors and all this stuff. And it was only since like WoW Classic that they started getting back into a flow. WoW Classic subsidizes retail a little bit, and now they've sort of, it's like, oh, okay, we've got more budget now to invest in actually growing this thing. And now Dragonflight did really well. It was well received. I don't know how well it's done for them in terms of actually making money, because maybe those games, just like you say, one bad expansion, people move on and never come back. And I certainly think that's happened to WoW, where a lot of people just never come back. But if WoW could turn it around, maybe Destiny can as well.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I saw Paul Tassi also reported that there is no Destiny 3 and that the fate of Destiny 2 hangs on how well received the final shape is, essentially.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think Paul...
They can't throw away the thing that Destiny does have is brand power, and that would be wild to just can the whole franchise, because I mean, at that point, surely wouldn't you just make a sequel or something and reimagine the business model a little bit? I wouldn't throw it in the bin. But that is crazy. Like, you would never have thought that. But maybe Xbox dodged the bullet, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. Let me go to Paul's thing, because I was make sure I get him right. Let's see. Yeah, this says the final shape delay was known by a couple months ago. They want the final shape just not to just be as good as Forsaken or Taken King, but better, and it needs to be the best. And he also talks about like the PvP stuff. He says the ultimate goal is very much for Bungie to be a multi-IP studio with multiple games and revenue streams, but even if Marathon is a success, there are likely not plans for some huge mass migration from the Destiny team to the Marathon team. Reading some more of this, yeah. Or maybe I read it wrong about there being no more Destiny. Or it all depends on Destiny or something. I don't know. Or it all depends on final shape. Either way, it sort of seems like outwardly when you look at PlayStation, right? They're selling all these consoles, making all this money. Spider-Man 2 comes out, critically acclaimed, 2.5 million in a day. But then you look behind the scenes, and it sort of seems like in turmoil. Bungie's having issues. They're canceling essentially other PlayStation first-party games, not living up to whatever standard that they have. Jim Ryan's leaving. Connie Booth fired on the way out. And developers supposedly not liking the games as a service strategy. Like, it's just weird where because PlayStation is so quiet, right, on socials, and they don't really interact as much. So you have this like front-facing presence that seems to be good. Like if you're just like glancing and paying attention, you'd be like, "Oh, PlayStation, 40 million consoles, Spider-Man doing really well. They must be killing it." But then you like hear about like Sony's margins and how they're kind of like razor thin, and some of the
6% apparently.
Yeah, and then like some of the stuff going on behind the scenes, and it's just kind of like, is everything okay in PlayStation Nation? You know, because we always worried about Xbox. Like I worried about Xbox in 2017. Like, are they going to be around? Because like, what's going on? They cancel Scalebound. They cancel Fable Legends, shut down the studio. Like those weren't good times, especially when like your first party releases at that point were like Halo Wars 2 and Super Lucky's Tale and stuff. It like was like, what is going on? And then there was a stretch where they were just releasing critically panned titles like Sea of Thieves when it first came out, or State of Decay 2, or Crackdown 3, and you were like, is this the best Xbox can do? Like, seriously, what's up with this? And like you go from 5 studios to 15, COVID happens, so like games take longer and longer to come out, and it's like, okay, you got Bethesda and ABK, now everything's set, and you look at like PlayStation, and it seems like on the surface, if you just looked at the surface, everything's nice and peaceful, right? And then like underneath, the sea's churning, sharks are swimming, like there's like a storm going on, and I don't know how that all is going to play out. I don't know if the reports of like, oh, well, the devs don't want to do games as a service, and they're doing it because there are people reporting that the devs are like Sony's going to 180 on the games as a service strategy, which I would find to be highly unbelievable.
I think that's hopium.
I think it is because people are like, oh, well, if they go back to this, because if like they've invested like $2 billion in that stuff, and even if they did 180 that, like how? Okay, so now if people have to start over, like now games are going to take even longer to come out. Like I don't know, it's very odd. Where
I tell you what,
they
will 180. They're going to 180 the VR probably, if anything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you one of the we talk about margins and stuff, and someone, I can't remember exactly who it was, but someone had a great tweet like analyzing Sony's budget sheets and their financials for the last year, like what they've reported, and they're like, well, if you tally all this up, it looks like PlayStation's operating margins or whatever will be 6% or 6.8% or something like that. I can't remember the exact figure, but it had declined, basically. It declined, and there's a few reasons for that. Like everything's more expensive, literally everything. Like I know in my company, like for example, we publish magazines of Future, and even stuff like the cost of the chemical that you use to gloss paper has risen exponentially, which is eaten into our margins. So so you think for PlayStation, when like they're doing all this kind of stuff and dealing with expensive components and stuff like that, and some components have come down in price, like as I saw, like RAM and storage prices have come down quite a lot, but there's a lot of stuff that's gone up in price, and one of those things is labor, like just paying your devs, because there's so much competition, but also the cost of living has gone up. So like a lot of people are trying to find higher paid jobs to offset like the how much extra they're having to spend on mortgages, and mortgage rates are crazy in some countries, especially in the UK, I think, and all that kind of stuff. So costs have gone up, but also like if you extrapolate from Meta, who's the only really super serious player in VR space, I would say, the ones who are like developing their own hardware, also developing their own ecosystem and all that kind of stuff, they literally last week warned their investors that they plan to lose billions of dollars over the next fiscal year, not per quarter, not millions, billions, on their VR division, on Metaverse Labs or whatever they call it. And this is like, this has to sort of give you at least a ballpark impression of how much Sony must have invested to develop their VR tech, because their VR tech is good. It's no slouch. It's very, very, very fancy, and it's quite powerful. The problem is, the problem with VR is like monetization. Like, how do you monetize something where like people don't want to wear it for that long and they don't engage with it for so long? And that's why mobile is so lucrative. People use their phones all day. Like I was playing Warcraft Rumble yesterday for hours and hours and hours in bed, just multitasking. You can play that game with one hand, for God's sake. But like with VR is fatiguing. So people, they use it for a bit and then they bounce off, So the business model, maybe someday the business model will be there and someone will figure it out. Like maybe Meta figures it out, and Meta certainly thinks and Zuckerberg certainly think they can figure this stuff out, and maybe they will. Maybe Zuckerberg will be laughing at the rest of us when he controls the world with his super VR breakthrough that hasn't occurred yet. But at least in the short term, and especially for Sony, I kind of feel like um, the margins must be horrible, and the investment they must have put in to develop that technology is undoubtedly a reason why like they're probably looking at lower margins. And the flip side of that is that everyone has to bear the cost to make the stock look more attractive. Because if the operating margins are lower or decreasing, then you make the stock look more attractive by lowering your operating margins, right? And the easiest way to do that is to do layoffs, and it sucks. It sucks that that's the way it is, but
Yeah.
no.
Darge Knight says in the super chat, Alan Wake 2 is an absolute masterpiece. Big love, Rand and Jez. Thank you, Darge Knight, my bro.
Hey, dog.
I love the fact that you're loving Alan Wake 2. Let's see. Cliffy B thinks that Gears should be rebooted. I figured I'd ask you this because you're the resident Gears lover here, but Cliffy B kind of did an interview where he said he would love to consult on Gears, and Phil Spencer knows his phone number, and that in his mind, Gears needs to be rebooted in a similar way to God of War. And wouldn't it be cool if it kind of rebooted into a survival horror game where you played as like a kid or a young child trying to get through the events of whatever game you'd be playing. So, and this introduced a lot of hot takes. I sort of think if they want to keep on doing Gears after the sixth one, it probably needs to change in some manner. It does sort of seem like they wanted to do a little bit of open world in the last one, but didn't want to go all the way. Maybe they do a full-blown open world, but is a full-blown open world exactly what Gears needs? Or should they go and compress it to like Alan Wake, Resident Evil levels where it's... Because, as we've seen, that sort of survival horror works. People seem to love it. And you essentially could turn Gears of War into a survival horror game in that manner. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to think about this one, Jez. What do you think? What do you think about Cliffy B's?
I don't like his take.
You don't like his take. Imagine that.
I don't like the concept he's come up with. I want to see Gears go broader. I want to see bigger worlds.
Okay.
I want to see more weapons. I want to see more enemies, and I want to see longer campaigns. I want to see the Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 is technically third-person cover shooter as well as being an RPG. There's no reason why Gears... I'm not saying make Gears a full-blown RPG, with stats and stuff and loot, but I think like going further in the direction of Gears 5 is the right thing to do, not further away from it. That being said, I think there's plenty of room for a Gears spin-off in that vein, like he was talking about. Like maybe, you do a survival horror spin-off, or even a first-person survival horror spin-off in the Gears universe. I think that could work really well. And I do think the Gears IP is potentially underutilized. I'd love to see a Gears Tactics 2 with a studio that, has a bigger budget, maybe. Because a lot of the cut features that I've heard about that got cut from Gears Tactics for budget and time reasons, I kind of feel like these were fundamental things that should have been in the game, like management layer. The game was missing a management layer, which is why hardcore Tactics fans didn't really get into it. And I feel like Xbox never really believed in that franchise, in that game, to be honest. But I think all this stuff, I think Gears as a universe has incredible potential, and I'd like to see more of it. But I don't think it needs to be rebooted. I don't think they should, especially don't think they should reboot it before at least addressing the current story arc.
Well, I just ran a poll. So I just ended the poll for, are you okay with boot up ads for Xbox first party games? I basically had that running the whole show. 1.3 thousand people voted, Jez. I don't care, won with 41%. 35% says yes, they're fine. And 23% say no, they suck.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a new poll up here. It's about Gears. And the question is, should Gears be rebooted like Cliffy B suggests? Or just be rebooted in general? I guess you don't necessarily have to agree with Cliffy B, but yes, Gears needs an update or reboot, or no, Gears is fine how it is. So yeah, you know, I would like. I think that there's other stories you can tell in the Gears universe, and they don't all have to necessarily play exactly like Gears as you know it. So I would love to see a spin-off game from the Coalition where it is more survival horror rather than what it currently is. And that's not saying like I don't want to play Gear 6, because I am actually really looking forward to it. They need to finish the story. You don't need to change it. But I do feel like afterwards, because I do feel afterwards to regain any interest, I do feel like interest in the franchise has decreased over time. And I feel like a good way to get that interest back is to do something big, like a reboot or like a different version of the game, essentially. How about the idea of Cliffy B consulting, though, Jez? Because it really does seem like he wants to be involved again. And because he this isn't the first time he's mentioned that, hey, call me, and nobody calls him. And I mean, you can point to, like, you know, Cliffy B was out there promoting the hell out of Gears 1, 2, and 3. They were super successful, super big for Xbox at the time, and you know, he's the creator of it. And does he have some really good ideas? Maybe that if they did call him up, that he could implement and change the franchise and put it on that upward trajectory. Because I do think you would have to keep the multiplayer the way it is. That multiplayer is pretty unique for the space. There's really nothing like Gears multiplayer out there, but also I sort of feel the ceiling for that multiplayer is very low. Because at this point in time in 2023, probably by the time the game comes out in 2025, you already know if you like Gears' multiplayer or not, right? There's been plenty of iterations of it. If you didn't like it in 2008, you're probably not going to like it in 2023. But I mean, there is a voracious fan base for it. So it's like you can still keep the multiplayer aspect for the way it is. But, you know, is there any other ways that you could increase the visibility of franchise? Would getting Cliffy B back consulting, would that get people interested in the franchise again? I don't know. What do you think?
The thing is, man, I can't. My issue with this is I feel like Cliffy B knows this is not how Microsoft does things. If there's a position on the Coalition's website that says we're looking for a consultant for Gears, they'd want Cliffy to apply for it. You know, I don't think they just randomly just like, oh, this guy is famous, let's just offer him a job. I don't think that's how Xbox operates, and I don't think that's how Microsoft operates a corporate policy. You know, I just don't think that's how it works. You know. Maybe that's how like Epic Games worked back in the day, but it's definitely not how Microsoft works. So I kind of feel like if Cliffy B really wanted to work on Gears, he should apply for a job like everyone else, you know.
But you know, you don't think Cliffy B wants to work essentially at the Coalition. He just wants to be hired as a consultant. But that's because you're hired as a consultant doesn't mean they would actually take any of your ideas, right?
Well, that's exactly it. You're paying a lot of money for no reason. Like, I mean, I really like Cliffy's, you know, versions of Gears were the best. There's no doubt about that in my mind. That, you know, even though like I love Gears 4 and 5, and I really like what they're doing, the direction they're going in with Gears 5. I like the abilities and that it's wider and stuff like that. There's no argument really that the first 3 Gears were the best Gears. There's no argument with that, I would suggest. But I will say, like, I wouldn't want Cliffy back as a consultant. I'd rather him come back like Chris Metzen did, as an employee, and actually join the team. Don't just be like a random consultant that comes in every now and then to sort of share your vision and then bail. Like, show your dedication, apply for the job, and come and join the studio. You know, that's kind of my take on it. I think it's a little bit arrogant to be like, oh yeah, pick up the phone, Phil. You've got my number. It's like, bro, they've got a team already. You know, if you want the job, apply for it. Kind of thing. I don't know. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. Am I overthinking it?
You should reach out to Cliffy. You could talk about it. Talk about it with them on Xbox 2+1, Jez.
No, we're not cool enough.
I mean, bro, he literally did Xbox era. So what are you talking about? You know, He did a podcast with Special Nick, of all people.
No, man. No, man.
You could say that directly to Cliff. You could say that directly to his face and see what he says.
I don't know. I'll reach out to him, bro.
Yeah. Also, I saw this news earlier. It's very interesting, but the Machine Games is opening up a new studio next year, I believe. It's opening up a new studio. What do you think about that?
When did that get announced?
Today, I believe, or yesterday. You didn't see this? I want to say.
I did not see that.
Where did I see this at? Machine Games. Let me go to Google. Let me get my Google skills. Machine Games. New studio. Let's see. Machine Games. Oh yeah, Windows Central posted this article 8 hours ago.
Oh, who wrote that, Samuel?
Sam Tolbert. Xbox and Bethesda's Wolfenstein developer Machine Games is expanding with a second studio in Sweden.
Nice.
And Machine Games is expanding with the second studio located in Sundsvall, Sweden, expected to be fully staffed in 2025. They're currently working in an Indiana Jones game. And this was as shared by Nordic outlet Game Reactor on Friday. Machine Games is expanding with the studio opening a satellite office in Sundsvall, Sweden. Game Reactor notes that the studio is expected to be fully staffed in 2025, though it's not clear what headcount the Swedish developer is aiming for at its second location. Quote, as a game developer, you are always on the lookout for new talent, said executive producer Dirk Gustafsson, and I'm sure I said that wrong, in a statement to Game Reactor. Opening a satellite office in northern Sweden gives us the opportunity to recruit from the large crowd of experienced developers who are in the region and who may not have the opportunity to move to our head office in Uppsala. So,
cool.
What do you think about that? What does that do for you? What does that signify?
That suggests to me that they're confident that Indiana Jones could become a franchise, but they also don't want to sacrifice
Wolfenstein.
Yeah, I want new Wolfenstein. You want a new Wolfenstein, Rand?
Oh, hell yeah. Dude, I love Wolfenstein 1 and 2. I am sort of disappointed that it seems like Wolfenstein 3, despite what the people in Reset Era Xbox thread, like Vixelis and Sullivan and those guys, of every Xbox show, there's just like Wolfenstein 3, and it's like, no. There's this thought that it was it's going to be like a secret game. There's a thought that it was going to be like a shadow drop, like a Hi-Fi Rush at some point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it really kind of seems like they stopped working on Wolfenstein 3 when they were able to start working on Indiana Jones. So it's cool to see them obviously expand, employ more people. They're hiring. I'm just kind of curious about the timetable of Indiana Jones. Personally, like we saw the leaked list from 2020 that they had it planned for like, what was it, 2023? Or maybe it was last year. Indiana Jones was supposed to be out either last year or this year. And we've only ever seen a 10-second Twitter video, right? And we're about to go into 2024 and we've seen nothing else from it. And it's like, when is this game going to come out? Is it a 2025 title? If so, like, that's a big gap of time between the last Wolfenstein game and this. Like, what were they doing that whole time? And it's like, okay, well, if they feel like they need to expand, does that mean, is that going to be like a support studio for Indiana Jones? Are they going to be able to do maybe, okay, let's do some pre-production work on Wolfenstein 3 or something? Like, I don't know. I mean, I love Machine Games regardless. I'm just very curious about the timetable of the whole Indiana Jones thing and what happened with Wolfenstein 3, because Pete Hines basically said they were making it at one point, and doesn't really seem like it, right? I guess what's going to come out? What do you think comes out first, Indiana Jones or Doom or id Software's new game? What do you think releases first? Because
tough.
like Doom Eternal released in 2020. And Wolfenstein Youngblood, that was co-developed with Arcane, came out in 2019, but their last full Machine Games title was Wolfenstein New Colossus in 2017. So I'm kind of curious, do you think id leapfrogged them and is able to get out their next full game before Machine Games is?
Hard to say, man. Hard to say. I mean, think about the next Doom is, I suppose they've got a lot of those assets already done. I mean,
True.
I'm sure they'll use. I'm not saying they'll just copy and paste every Kako demon again, but some of that work's already been done.
If
you
they
know,
are
I
doing a
guess.
new Doom.
Well, it's Doom U0, isn't it? That's what
I
the
mean,
rumor
that's
is.
what the leak says, but I mean, the leak could be essentially wrong, right?
It could
I mean,
be.
that's the thing from 2020. Who knows if that's still the plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not the plan, if it's not Doom, then probably not. I'd say Indiana Jones maybe comes first, but if it is another Doom game, I think that probably could come out earlier. I suppose they don't have as much. Like they've got to build completely new assets for Indiana Jones. I suppose there wouldn't be a lot of Wolfenstein they can put into Indiana Jones, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could be completely off base. I don't know. I don't know a damn thing about. I've always said my worst sourcing is pretty much Bethesda. Like I really never really had great sources for ZeniMax information ever. They're one studio that is generally quite good at keeping a lid on things, but so it's just speculation. But I don't know. I know for a fact though, whichever's first, I'm gonna be happy with it because both studios are pretty damn incredible in my
They
opinion.
are. It's not incredible. This review that I saw of just Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 campaign by GameSpot. What do you think what do you think they just gave it? They just published their review for the campaign.
3 out of 10?
5 out of 10.
Ooh.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
woo. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I mean, granted, it's not the full package, and I don't know how that stuff plays out if you work, because they still have to review the other things. But man, campaign is you're talking about something that's probably worse than Redfall at this point. Redfall's like a 57. Yeah, that Modern Warfare 3 campaign.
It's kind of weird though because like people are reviewing it, but are they going to change their scores when just imagine. I'm not saying this is going to be the case, but just imagine the multiplayer is absolutely incredible. Just imagine that it's the best multiplayer COD's ever had. Are they going to change those scores?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, because it is just.
Or are they going to do a separate? Are they going to do a separate review? Because I don't think Metacritic sort of. I don't think Metacritic has like separate. Because we did 2 reviews for Halo Infinite. We did a campaign review and we did a multiplayer review. And I can't remember how Metacritic passed our score for that because, obviously they haven't got 2 categories. They only do like 1 for Halo Infinite. So I like, how do you score
I mean,
that
right now on Metacritic, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 literally has no reviews. So I would imagine they're doing it because they know it's going to get, people are interested in seeing what the campaign is, and the campaign is playable now, a week early, and you do pay for it. So I would imagine it'll just be a combination. They'll probably have like, here's the review of the campaign, here's the review of zombies, here's the review of multiplayer, and then they'll probably just come up with some score that combines them or whatever, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Because otherwise, it'd be on IGN's review would be on Metacritic already, and so would a bunch of others. But it's not because game's not really out yet.
Yeah,
and yet there's not like a the full thing. So yeah. But I don't expect the game to review very well. Anyways,
no, me neither.
Hey, so what else we got? Oh, there's a rumor going around that I forget where I saw this, but basically that Baldur's Gate 3 for Xbox is currently being play tested and will be releasing like on December 6th. Which would be right around the time of the Game Awards. Surprise, surprise. Shocker.
Shadow drop.
Shocker. I don't know if it'd be a shadow drop, but I always did say best time to release that game is probably right after it wins the Game of the Year, right? Where it's like you can run trailers, be like, play the Game of the Year on Xbox now. That'd be the best time to release that game. So supposedly it's coming in December, which would be before the end of the year. And yeah. So let me take a look at this poll. We had 250 votes. 63% Jez says Gears needs an update. 37% says no, Gears is fine, just how it is.
Well, nobody thinks it doesn't need an update. Surely.
Well, like a reboot, so 62%. Yeah.
Doesn't
Anyways,
need a reason.
with that, let's move over to the wonderful Patreon people with their questions on patreon.com/XB2, where you can submit your questions in the exclusive Q&A thread. We can also vote on the gameplay and get exclusive access to the Xbox 2 Ultimate show we just did on Tuesday, and any early access to the Xbox 2+1s we do the rest of this month. So we got to start looking and locking down some of the guests. But we have one from last week, Sierra11 Kevin, who says, personally, I find game music to be a time machine that can provide instant good memories of gaming moments. When I hear music from Revenge of the Shinobi or Streets of Rage, both composed by Yuzo Koshiro, it instantly brings back some childhood memories. Is this something you both experience? And if so, what game music does that for you?
Ooh, video game music. Well, I actually listen to Final Fantasy VII piano music to fall asleep sometimes. But I've listened to it so much now that it's kind of lost its impact a little bit. But Final Fantasy music definitely. But actually, there was one today. I was watching. Well, I wasn't watching it, but I was browsing YouTube, and a video was auto playing that was talking about some mods for Metal Gear Solid Collection on Steam. Because it's a mess, so the community's having to fix it. Yeah. The Metal Gear Solid, themes and chimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That, I mean,
But
no,
it wasn't even that though. It was just the video that was playing. It was just the ambient sounds of stealthing around in Shadow Moses.
Oh, okay.
It was just I can't even. I'm not even gonna try and do it, but it's just percussion. It's not even a full blown song or anything. It's just that, so all the menu music, where you're just on the menu and it's just like some percussion and some light MIDI track playing.
I've had it where it'll Streets of Rage recently. I remember listening to that on YouTube, and I was like, I instantly was like a kid again, playing it with my brother. Or Final Fantasy VII, the prelude, sitting there. I just remember what it was like when I was in high school or whatever, when I first played that. Or I remember when Jeff Grubb started to do his whole Punch-Out thing with Dan Reichert. I remember tuning in once and hearing the music. I literally was having flashbacks to as a kid playing Punch-Out. Or Kingdom Hearts 2, when you hear some of the music like Dearly Beloved or the final song in that. They're definitely music. Not only that, but it's not just gaming, but like music from Lord of the Rings. Anytime I hear that stuff, I'm instantly transported to like 2000. So music always brings me back, always, just to stuff. Silas says, "Happy November, Matt, and the second most famous Corden. Each of you have been given the opportunity to build a game with $250 million budget. You can make any game you want. What studio would you have developed the game? Has to be present-day studios, nothing like the Mass Effect era BioWare. And what game director would you hire? There are a few stipulations. First, the game must achieve a 90 average Metacritic score and sell at least 10 million units. Second, if you don't meet those two benchmarks, Rand will have to spend the rest of his working days as a taste tester for McCormick Seasonings, and Jez would have to become a propaganda writer for the Tory party."
Oh,
yikes! This is an interesting question.
I'd be really good at that.
My first thought when doing this is, I want Quantum Break 2. I want Sam Lake as the game director, and I don't care. Like $250 million, is it going to sell 10 million copies? Probably not. But god damn it, I want that game. Yeah, I don't know. What would you want, Jez? What would be a game?
I'd get the Coalition to make me my StarCraft shooter. But just make it exactly like Gears, but StarCraft. But I suppose like for it to be AAA, for it to be like hit over 90 on Metacritic, I think it'd have to have really, really, really good writing. Like sort of the kind of writing that helps a shooter sort of transcend, a little bit. So, I I don't know. I don't know how I get to write it and direct it and stuff. I'm not that familiar with individual devs, I think, but that's what I'd look at.
Bro, Quantum Break 2 with all the what Remedy has learned right now, you could tie in even some Control stuff and some Alan Wake stuff into Quantum Break. That's easy 90 meta, bro. Easy. Easy. I don't know about 10 million units.
Tell Microsoft that, bro.
Yeah, they don't care. I mean, Phil, if you're listening, which I know you're not, but if you do listen to this later, because you probably wouldn't because it's way late in the show, but now's the time to reach out to Remedy to see if they want to work on Quantum Break for you. You know? Quantum Break 2, Remedy and Xbox working together. I mean, there's a reason you held on to the IP. You could just give it back to them. You could sell it to them if you wanted to. I mean, you gave Alan Wake back to them, although I think Remedy actually owned Alan Wake, and all Microsoft gave them back was the publishing rights, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Phil. You be the hero that people want. Do Quantum Break 2. Come on, let's save Beth Wilder. You know? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're super busy. Like, they got what? They have the Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes. I think they're going to be starting production on. Control 2 is entering pre-production. Concord is entering full production. And there's they're super busy. They got like 5 games. Well, 6, I guess, if you count the 2 Max Payne games. Dude, I'm so excited for the Max Payne remakes. Like, I have a feeling they're just going to use what they, the Sam Blake combo with the Max Payne actor in, like, for their game. Dude, you need to get to the Alan stuff.
Yeah, I'll probably do it this weekend. I'll probably play it this weekend.
We have Achievement saying, in the mid-gen refresh leak, it said they have a new I.O. system. Could the updated series with new Southbridge be able to help the sound delay issues that plague current systems? I know the latency is handled by the Southbridge. Jez, what do you think about that?
Oh, that's above my head, I'm afraid. But like, maybe they can use the mid-gen upgrades to solve some issues, but I think it'll probably just maybe help make devs' lives a little easier. I don't think it's going to have significant impact for end users, but who knows? Who knows? I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there's audio issues with Alan Wake 2, but
yeah, they fixed that though, haven't they?
I don't know. I got them at the start when I started the game up, but it like fixed itself within 10 seconds. It was weird. I started it up and I would have the issue, but then it was fixed, and I didn't have it again until I turned the game on the next day. So I was like, okay, that's odd. And I know people talk about there being Dolby Atmos issues, like it's delayed on the Xbox, and I don't know.
Yeah, there's an issue with Dolby Atmos on Xbox since forever. So maybe that's to fix some of those issues.
Maybe, but
I don't know ultimately.
There's no way to know. Paul Vitas says, what studio do you think has the next surprise launch, like Hi-Fi Rush? I'm assuming first party. The next studio to have the next surprise launch. So we're not talking about surprise hit. You're talking about a surprise launch, because I think that's different, right?
Like Hi-Fi Rush.
Well, but he says the next surprise launch, not the next surprise hit. So when I think of surprise launch, I think
that was a
Shadow
surprise
Drop.
launch. Yeah, Shadow Drop, like.
So because you could have read this as like a surprise hit, because nobody was expecting Hi-Fi Rush to be that good, right? So it's like So essentially, he's asking which is the next game that's going to get Shadow Dropped.
Yeah.
And let's put our thinking caps on, Jez, shall we?
Oh, that hurts.
You look at all the studios that have games potentially. Is there any one of them that fit well into a surprise launch? Something that you wouldn't market? Because like we talked about Indiana Jones, I don't think that's clearly going to be marketed, right? Up until the lead up. Mm-hmm. Same thing with like a Doom. Same thing with a Fable. Same thing with South of Midnight. I mean, how they already showed a trailer, so all the games that they already talked about wouldn't fit the bill because it's already revealed. So when I think of like the studios, there's one studio that comes to mind. You know what studio that is? To me?
Who's that?
Double Fine.
Ooh.
I think Double Fine could be one of those where they just put something out and it's like, boom, it's out. Go play it and enjoy it. Everybody's like, yeah, because I'm trying to think of another studio.
Yeah, I agree. But I think Shadow Drops work kind of well for like fun, surprising games, and it's kind of like that looks weird. I need to check it out because there's been no marketing for it whatsoever except for this. So, and what have I got to lose? So yeah, I think that scans.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I think it would be yeah. Double Fine. Luke Spook says, "Hey gents, hope you are both doing well. I've just finished watching The Creator at the cinema. Lovely sci-fi spectacle. I really want to watch that. I will when it comes available to rent. It sounded and looked super interesting to me. Question is probably more for Rand. Oh, I got a question. All right, I love it. Mostly it's always for Jez because this is Jez's podcast after all, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jez delayed this show by 2 hours because he wanted to watch BlizzCon, What sci-fi movie IP would you want to revisit in game format? I could make a long list, but top of it would be The Fifth Element. That is a good choice. Fifth Element game? That would be really cool. I know they've done it already, but I mean, I would be really interested in like doing a Matrix. There were
good.
Yeah, but like Matrix, but good. Imagine if like the developers of Sifu made a Matrix game with the awesome combat that game had, but in a Matrix experience and kind of have a little bit more shooting and flying.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really, really cool. Star Wars is always really cool to explore a Star Wars game. But yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to mind was the Matrix. I'm trying to think of maybe you could build something in Blade Runner.
It's just cyberpunk though at that point.
Yeah, but no, it's still science fiction. But maybe you could build like a third person detective kind of Alan Wake game where you're essentially a Blade Runner and you're investigating.
Dude, this game exists.
What is it?
This game literally exists. I can't remember exactly what it's called. I think it's just called Blade Runner. It's literally what you described.
Is there a game like?
Yeah, it is. It was actually remastered recently.
Oh, you mean like system from the devs of
I can't remember
the devs that are currently making the Silent Hill remake.
Bluebird.
The Medium. Bluebird. There was a game.
Not, man.
It wasn't because they had a game kind of like that, I guess. Well, not kind of, but it was sci-fi. But I'm trying to even think. Yeah.
There is one. Like it came out in the 90s and it's for PC, but it's actually really good.
I didn't play it if it came out for PC.
Yeah. It's actually really good.
Observer was the game I was thinking of. Fantasticals.
Observer. Yeah.
Bad Boy Lee, yeah. Tron. I would love to play a Tron game. There has been some Tron games out there, but like I love it. Dune. Hitman says Dune. You're 100% right on that one.
Oh, there's Dune Spice Wars. It just came out.
Yeah, that's true.
Strategy game.
Yeah, but I don't like strategy games and I don't like MMOs, so. Oh well. Holy Dark Death. Hey guys, no question here. Just joined Patreon and want to say hello and keep up the good job. Well, thank you for joining. And
thank you so much.
Hope you enjoy your stay. Yeah. We have good old Collinwood. Happy fallback and our weekend, Rand Jez. Yeah, next member Jez. My clocks go back this week, or this Sunday, so we'll have to figure that out for the podcast on Friday. He says, I have a question about the Game Awards, but not the obvious one. Instead, what games impressed you this year enough that they should win an award for the other categories? I'll outline most of the awards, but you don't have to choose a game against a category if you can't think of one. To keep it brisk, make it the first game that comes to mind. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Best game direction. Alan Wake 2. What's yours?
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate, okay. Best narrative. Alan Wake 2. What's yours?
Baldur's Gate.
Okay. Best art direction. Hi-Fi Rush. What's yours?
Baldur's Gate.
Okay. Best scored music. Alan Wake 2. What's yours?
Baldur's Gate.
Shut the fuck up. No way it's Baldur's Gate for everything. You're
Dude,
lying. You're fucking
down
lying.
by the river. Down by the river. Go and listen to the intro music, man. You haven't even played it, bro.
Dude, you're lying. You're lying.
I'm not lying. I'm literally not lying. I'm literally not lying. Go and play that game and then tell me I'm wrong. Okay? You haven't played it.
Best audio, best audio design. Alan Wake 2. What's yours?
I mean, does Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty count?
Probably not.
Doesn't. Because I just love that game. Sounds so crunchy. Well, speaking of crunchy, I'll go with Diablo then. So it's so satisfying. The combat. That's mainly the reason you play it, right? The combat and the sound design is a big part of that. Disgusting, wet gore sounds all over the place. It's great.
Yeah, best performance. My
girlfriend just turned the light off and now I'm in the dark.
I don't know. Best performance. Best ongoing. Maybe Halo Infinite, although it's probably not even going to be nominated. Best indie, Cocoon. Best action game, Hi-Fi Rush. Best action adventure, Alan Wake 2. Best role-playing, Starfield. Starfield. Best fighting, Mortal Kombat 1.
Baldur's Gate could just win all these.
Best sports racing, the Crew Motorfest. Or Forza, I guess. Yeah, that's interesting. Alan Wake 2, though. Ryan Kipple says, looks like Randall Clivorant strikes again based on the early consensus of Modern Warfare 3. I haven't seen pre-order numbers, but do you guys think this kind of thing will deter more and more people from pre-ordering games in general, or is FOMO too powerful? I'm sure some people will not pre-order it, absolutely. Well, but then again, like, if you're not interested in the campaign, does the campaign scores bother you that much? If you don't play that?
No one's picking up that game for campaign.
I mean, I do.
You are very, very weird.
I know. But yeah, this game always sort of seemed like a Frankenstein that was going to get bad reviews. I'm sorry. It just kind of seemed that way. Everything just kind of seemed really rushed. So I'm not surprised by the reviews it's getting.
No.
Omen says, Happy Friday. Well, it's great that Xbox has such a diverse lineup of games with everything from World of Warcraft to Microsoft Flight Sim. Do you think that might be an issue for Xbox? It's hard to define what to expect from Xbox games when the game experiences differ so much. I've seen this line of thinking from mainstream podcasts, essentially, that Nintendo has an identity. Right? They're the Marios and the Zeldas. Like, you know what you're getting with that. PlayStation has this identity. It's that, third person over the shoulder Spider-Man, God of War games, right? And Xbox has no identity. That's what the mainstream podcasts say, is that Xbox literally has no identity.
What's Tencent's identity?
Money?
Surely that's Microsoft. That's Microsoft's identity too.
No, but I'm just saying, because that's what Holman's asking. Like, hey, they have all this huge diverse lineup, but it's really hard to pigeonhole what Xbox is, right? Where you can look at Nintendo and you know what you're getting. You look at PlayStation and currently you know what you're getting, unless the games as a service stuff comes out. But with Microsoft, and especially with all their acquisitions, it used to be with Microsoft, you were getting Gears, Halo, and Forza. Gears, Halo, and the Kids Move song. Halo, Gears, and Forza. Halo, Gears, and Forza, right? You were getting that. Now it's much more than that. So, yeah, it's like I've seen people say it has no... Do you agree with that, Jez? Do you think... Does Xbox have an identity problem? Or...
I don't think it matters. I really don't.
No.
I think this is a little bit overthinking, because I think a lot of YouTubers and content creators like that, sometimes they just put thoughts in for the sake of it.
Oh.
I think this is one of them. This is one of them that's like, yeah, so who cares? Like, Microsoft, it doesn't matter if Microsoft has an identity, and I personally, I don't even associate like PlayStation with over-the-shoulder games anyway. Like, that's not what PlayStation means to me. And that's not what PlayStation means to most people who play on PlayStation. What PlayStation means to most people who play on PlayStation is FIFA, Call of Duty.
That is true.
FIFA, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Roblox. That's and now Roblox, I should say. Like that's what it means. It's going to mean to most people. So, like if the attach rate on something like God of War was 100%, then maybe you could make that argument. But it's just not the case. It's just not the case.
But from the mainstream outlets that cover it, that's the different. That's what it is. It's not. It's not.
But that's the thing. They don't matter either.
But sometimes, they set the trends. They set the talking points. That like you've only.
I also don't cover FIFA. I also don't really care about Call of Duty beyond the review. They're not into this stuff as much. So I don't think the identity really matters beyond the core of people who are ultimately just looking for a nostalgia trip. And I think a lot of gaming discourse revolves around this nostalgia trip. And I know it does because, I like nostalgia too, But I think at the same time, it's like something you have to sort of sometimes acknowledge when something is nostalgia. Like I can't in good faith recommend a modern Pokemon game because they've gotten really bad, I think. And I can't in good faith recommend, World of Warcraft in its current state because I think 90% of the reason why I enjoy it is nostalgia. Recommending WoW to a new player in 2023 is really hard because it's almost like a legacy game, and I think it does need a sequel or a reboot to get a new engine and get better visuals and stuff like that, to find a new audience. But yeah, I think the idea that Xbox needs an identity or that it's a problem that it doesn't have an identity, I think that's asinine, personally.
Well, we have a super chat here from Face, Jez. You want to answer this? He says, Microsoft couldn't sell 100 million consoles. How will Microsoft acquire 100 million subscribers?
Well, the thing is, Microsoft changed the rules. They changed the rules about what constitutes a subscriber when they turned Xbox Live into a Game Pass subscription model. So, I think this is part of the reason why they're not going to report Game Pass. Game Pass as a metric is not going to be a reporting thing anymore because they've made Xbox Live Gold doesn't exist anymore. It's now Game Pass Core. So it's like, does Microsoft now go to invest and say, yeah, we now have 100 million Game Pass subscribers? No, because people will see right through that and they'll be like, well, that's only because you've rebranded one of your services, right? But at the same time, it's then you'd have to like do a differentiate and say, well, we've got this many paying Xbox Game Pass subscribers, not including Xbox Game Pass Core because we rebranded that from Xbox Live Gold, and it's all becomes complicated. I just think, like I said at the start of the show, we talked a little bit about how I felt a little bit like Game Pass was being de-emphasized, and now that Microsoft's got Candy Crush, I kind of feel like Game Pass is not as important to them as it was maybe last month, or the month before rather now, I suppose.
Well, that's not really what he's saying. He's like, how is Microsoft going to sell 100 million subscribers when they could never sell 100 million consoles? And I would argue that it's easier to sell 100 million subscriptions than 100 million $500 boxes, right?
Well, there's that too, and also you got PC players where Microsoft sees Game Pass growth is on PC, and you bet when they start putting when they kick Amazon Prime out of the Blizzard ecosystem, because right now with Amazon Prime you get free stuff for Overwatch, Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, and all of the sorts of Blizzard games. You get all that for Amazon Prime. When Microsoft kicks Amazon out of that ecosystem and switches it to Xbox Live, you damn well bet they're going to see more subscribers come in via that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, more avenues. You could sell it on console, you could sell it to PC, you could sell it to mobile. There's more avenues to sell a subscription than there is a console, right? Yeah. So, yeah. We have Just James Super Chat. Any news on the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters coming to Xbox? No news.
No news.
Also,
we expect it, but there's no news.
Also, what's your Final Fantasy game and your favorite Final Fantasy theme song? My favorite Final Fantasy game is 7. It's the first one I played. I played it like 5 times. And my favorite Final Fantasy theme song, I think my favorite Final Fantasy song is the ending song of Final Fantasy VIII. You
Dude,
know,
you mean the ultimate? No, the extreme when you fight Ultimecia.
no, I mean like the end cutscene one.
Oh
Like after
right,
you beat the game. Um,
fair
I
enough.
love that song so much. But it's not really a theme song, but that's just what I think of Final Fantasy VIII.
Mm.
But that would be for me. What about you? What's your favorite Final Fantasy? Probably 7, right?
My favorite Final Fantasy probably is 7, yeah. But my favorite Final Fantasy song is what I just said, the extreme.
Mm.
Um, the extreme, which is the boss music for Final Fantasy 8. You know, Final Fantasy 8, even when I was a kid, I was like, what the this story's
Story's
whack, man.
ridiculous. Story's
Yeah. I was
ridiculous.
like, I got to the end of that on disc 4, and I was like, hang on a sec, none of this makes any sense. So, because like the whole plot kind of hinges on the fact that
Why does Square
half the
Enix
character.
always ignore Final Fantasy VIII? They remake 7. There's talk about them remaking 9 and maybe even 10. They skip over 8 every single time. Why?
They did that HD. They did
Yeah,
that.
they did that
They
for
did
whatever.
re-release of the HD.
Final Fantasy VIII, bro. Come on.
It doesn't. It's not.
Don't
it's
you
not good
don't
enough,
you
man.
say that. It does deserve
It doesn't
the
deserve
tribute.
it.
Yes,
It's
it
not.
does.
I'm sorry. It's Final Fantasy. It's just not iconic.
What,
man.
and
It's not
9
iconic.
is?
Yes.
I mean, I guess maybe. But bro, 8 is I love 8, bro. Come on.
There's a lot of nostalgia for it, but Rand, that is nostalgia talking. I had a lot of it. Grinding them drawers.
But you do
bro.
yeah, well, when you're a kid, yeah, that's what you do. You make yourself super powerful and break the game.
It was kind of cool you could do that, but at the same time, it was really dumb. It
Yeah,
trivialized the whole
junction
game.
system or the draw system.
Yeah, like man, you could get Kuragar really early and give yourself like 10,000 hit points, and then you just like laughing while bosses just can't kill you. It was a weird game, man.
Yeah, it was. 80s cartoon villain says, I think the Blade Runner like game you were thinking of was Observer. That's the one I had in my mind. Yeah, with Ruder Hager from Blade Runner in there as like the detective.
Oh, right.
That was from Bloober Team, yeah. Nintendo Don the Otaku says, I never understood the identity thing. Nintendo puts Bayonetta next to Mario and Xenoblade next to Pikmin. All different genre styles, just like Xbox. Yeah, but that doesn't fit the agenda, Nintendo Don. You know, when you're on these mainstream podcasts, Xbox doesn't have an identity. Even though exactly what you talked about is right. Nintendo has Bayonetta and Xenoblade and stuff, but you never really hear those podcasts talk about Xenoblade, really, or Bayonetta. It's always just Mario and Zelda and maybe Metroid here or there, you know? Because they're just for the mainstream, you know? Back to the Patreon questions. We have Lee Sanders. After these early thoughts of COD, I am again thinking it's time to do something with COD and giving it to one of the studios like how the Coalition looks after Gears. Let's give these studios some life back and allow them some creative freedom to create something new. COD yearly isn't the answer, in my opinion. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think they need to be every other year. You need to give Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, and Treyarch more time, and that would help them to maybe even, because like if you imagine a scenario where, okay, so Treyarch's game's next year, right? Sledgehammer supposedly did this one, but it was like so Treyarch's next year, 2024, and it would be 3 years, so that would maybe mean Infinity Ward would be ready in 2025. Let's just say that's the plan. And then if you skipped after that, so then you would skip 2026, and you get to 2027, that'd be Sledgehammer, and then 2029 would be Treyarch, and then 2031 would be Infinity Ward. So essentially you'd be going to like 5 years, you know, like you have 5 years for the next Treyarch game. I sort of feel like they need it to make the games better. And maybe potentially with all that extra time, they could build something else. Because there's rumors that Infinity Ward has another game they're working on too. But the thing is, Kotick was all about, okay, COD's the money-making machine. We're going to throw all these other studios that we have making other content into the COD machine to prop it up. And maybe that worked out there in the Xbox One era where maybe you could turn it around in 3 years with these other studios. but like when COVID hit, they ran into a lot of problems, and I don't think they've ever really recovered so much. Really. Well, I know Modern Warfare, but that was in 2019. So Modern Warfare 2 last year did get a lot of people to come back, but I think Modern Warfare 3 is not going to do the same thing. I don't know.
No.
We're just going to have to wait and see what they're going to do with COD. Lazar Wolf says, "Hey Jez, I know it just came out, but any word on if the Legion Go is better or worse than the ROG Ally?"
The rule of thumb is this: performance-wise, it's identical. It's literally identical. I saw some benchmarks when it's maybe 0.1% better on the Legion, but the screen on the Legion is worse. It's a vertical portrait mode screen that they've just basically just bought in a screen from one of their Android tablets and whacked it in there. It's not a good screen. Whereas the ROG Ally has a screen that is designed for landscape, and it's also got variable refresh rates, whereas the Legion Go doesn't have it. Without having a go with the Legion Go, I would still prefer to recommend the ROG Ally. However, the Legion Go does do some really cool, innovative things, such as the detachable joysticks, like the Nintendo Switch. You can detach them, and there's also a kickstand, so you can, put it on the table on a flight or something like that. So it's a better usability maybe on the Legion Go, but I think the screen will give you a better experience on the ROG Ally. But I think you'll have a good experience with either one. I canceled my Legion Go pre-order because I was like, well, if the benchmarks are the same, there's pretty much no point. I preferred the design of the Legion Go because it's black and it looks cooler, I think, and also the joysticks look really fun to use, with the kickstand and stuff. Because I do travel, and I travel with my Asus ROG Ally, but Asus ROG Ally is really good. It's really light, it's really balanced, and it just feels great to use. So I'm just gonna stick with that, I think. But I haven't used the Legion Go, and we're gonna have a review up of it soon because we do have some review units.
Diego says, "Sup guys, this question is for Jez. I've been wanting to get into World of Warcraft for a bit, but I'm always intimidated by how much content I've missed. Do you think a reboot sequel of World of Warcraft would be a good idea, similar to Counter-Strike 2 recently, with better graphics, new mechanics, or fresh start? Let me know your opinion on this. And Rand, would you try World of Warcraft if they did do this? Love the show."
Thanks so much, mate. Man. Well, first of all, the thing about coming back to WoW, starting again, you skip all the old content. So you don't have to do any of the old content, and each expansion is a contained story. Maybe it refers back to past events, which you can look up on the wiki or something in the story if you actually care too much about the story. But every expansion's a gear reset, so it's not like you have to catch up 20 years of content or whatever. It's a full reset. So if you do want to get into it, you can just try it out, and you'll be put straight into Dragonflight with a character that's ready to go for Dragonflight. So you don't have to redo all that old content anyway. But it's still kind of disorienting because you do get given like tons and tons of abilities up front, and because you skip ahead, so you get all these abilities, and it's like, how do these abilities work? How do they synergize and stuff like that? And it can be confusing. So I kind of that's what I was talking about earlier. It's hard to recommend Modern WoW because I just don't think it's designed very well for newcomers because of that stuff. Like, even though you do skip ahead, it's still really confusing and hard to get into because of all the extra abilities you get and stuff. So I do think a reboot would help the game a lot, or like a time skip sequel. I think that would help the game a lot. But clearly Blizzard's not interested in doing that, I think. But I will say one thing. One of the things they are doing with these upcoming expansions is they take place in the old world. So I kind of feel like they are doing a sort of revamp of the old world as part of this expansion. Because the next expansion is called the... No. Not this expansion, but one of the future expansions. Not this next expansion. This next expansion is a new area. But the expansion after that takes place in the old world, which suggests to me they're gonna have to do a revamp on the old world, otherwise it'll be weird, right? So
Mhm.
maybe that'll be the sort of soft reboot and the better place to come back into the franchise. But I suppose we'll wait and see.
I suppose so. I suppose so. I mean, would I play it? I don't know. I'm not really interested in playing an MMO like that. I mean, I suppose if it was like all brand new and stuff, maybe I would try it out. But honestly, probably not. I know my taste pretty well, and World of Warcraft's never something that's appealed to me. Just like Elder Scrolls Online's not something that has appealed to me, or any of that sort of stuff. So, and it's not really the graphics; it's just the type of game it is and the investment that you have in it. I mean, I like to play as many games as I can play. I don't like getting stuck on one game. I mean, I beat Alan Wake 2 and immediately went to Jusant, and then I beat Jusant and immediately went to RoboCop, and I'm going to beat RoboCop and play Modern Warfare 3 and then go to something else. I don't really play one game for too long. I don't know. So it doesn't really fit my play style. But I don't think it's going to happen, and if it did, I don't think I'd be interested anyways. Governor Grimm, not a question. In response to a question you asked, I feel compelled to play the Call of Duty the same way Xbox guys should feel compelled to watch BlizzCon. Okay. And Kraken56, he says, hey guys, I know Jez said that he heard Xbox got a significant increase in marketing budget. Do you think this means that next year's showcase will go back to being in person like E3? I know Phil said he loves the energy from the crowd, but it has been since 2019. There have been a lot of shows going back to the live show at the Game Awards, Gamescom, Summer Games Fest, and BlizzCon. It makes sense because Phil was also a big supporter of E3, but they had to cancel it last year, so Phil should know better than to trust them. I could even see them partner with Summer Games Fest for something more significant demos for their games and partners. You know, yeah, I've thought about this too, actually. Because Phil has said publicly he loves the crowd. And you could still like BlizzCon was live, right? That was live with people in the audience.
Yeah.
You could
Totally live.
You could easily do an Xbox show like that where it's just fans in the media in attendance.
Yeah.
But I wonder if they feel that it's not worth it, especially with how highly rated their shows have been. That maybe it's just, I don't want to say cheaper, but just easier to just do a show, like your own show, like the way they have been doing it, rather than putting on this whole experience. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance it comes back, or do you think they just do what they've been doing, which it's a digital showcase and we have a watch party for anybody that wants to come to LA for FanFest or for the media, where you can watch it together and all that sort of stuff? Or do you think there's a chance that it's like a full-on theater show again, maybe?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a theater at E3 this year. It was just we were watching on a big cinema screen. There was enough people in that hall for it to have been a live show. There was.
But there has to be a reason why they don't do the live shows. I know, the pandemic was nobody was doing stuff, but now
I think one of the reasons was, I suppose, like they didn't want everyone to have to travel there, I suppose, and staff it up and that kind of thing. Because I think like there was still a question mark over whether people would want to travel for that show.
Right, especially with E3 not being a thing, right? Essentially,
yeah. There's no E3, and it's not like you've got like a BlizzCon community. Like there's people who've been going to BlizzCon for like years and years and years who will go every single year, and they've got like a community around that now. And the BlizzCon tickets are not cheap, but I've heard that. Well, I think Blizzard have been pretty candid about this. That BlizzCon is not a profitable thing for them. It's like it's for the fans, and it's I suppose partially it's for marketing and stuff, but it's a community event. It's not about making money. And like even though the tickets went up in price, they still stand to lose like a hell of a lot of money running these kind of shows. So they aren't cheap. And I suppose like it does go back to what you're saying, like, is it worth doing? And I suppose then you could reduce that even further and say, is any marketing worth doing? It is a marketing thing. And I suppose like there is something to be said about an event where people are there in person and the networking and seeing face to face, and it's it's more impactful, I think, when it is in person. So I personally think that they probably will eventually start doing the live shows again in person. Will it be this year? I'd say, who knows what they're thinking about it. But I think they will do it eventually. I really do. But
you really do think they'll do it again, huh? There's
yeah, I
some
do.
hope. I mean, I guess I could see it, but I guess I could see it, but
I think they'll do it.
I don't know. I sort of think it's not really needed. I mean, does it improve the experience of the people watching at home if there's a crowd? Is BlizzCon better because you have a bunch of Blizzard fanatics screaming every 2 minutes about something?
Well, they talk to fans and get feedback, and there's loads of press there.
True.
Like press get invited to BlizzCon, and streamers get invited.
Were you invited?
And YouTubers. No, I was not invited.
What? How could they not invite you?
I don't know. I guess they don't like me, bro.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if it did come back. I mean, I really enjoyed my time at E3 2016. Being in the audience for an E3, I never thought I would do one, and I was there, and it definitely was way better than I thought. I just sort of feel like maybe they're in the groove of doing these digital things where it's just all we need is a stage. We need Phil to stand here and speak for 5 minutes. We need Sarah to stand here and speak for a couple minutes, and then it's just teams sending us trailers. Like, do you need to have a live audience for that? And I think the answer to that is no, you don't need that. But if you're Jeff Keighley and you're doing a Game Awards, you need a live audience because you need people to come. You need, same thing with Summer Games Fest, I guess. If you wanted to actually it be the new E3, you need it. You can't have a digital show. So, yeah. I'd like for it to come back, but I'm not as positive on that one as Jez is. I think that's it, Jez. I know.
Double checked.
I mean, yeah. I looked again.
Refresh the page.
I did because Kraken's came in an hour ago, but I'll refresh it again.
You will.
Yeah, because if we do miss questions from the Patreon peeps, it's not personal. Sometimes I just miss them. When I'm loading up the more comments, and it's just like you just skip them. But I'm pretty sure I got everybody's here. So, yeah, I think that's going to be it. I know it's late for you, Jez, because this show started 2 hours later than normal. So I'm sure your girlfriend is really happy with you right now.
Probably not.
Yeah, but at least you don't got to do all
Nobody's happy with me.
That's not true. People love you.
Me.
Hey, everybody in chat, make sure you type in chat how much you love Jez. Even if you did tell all the Xbox fans to watch today and it was just Phil. That's okay. We still love him, though.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys enjoyed the show, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to the sponsor of this episode of the Xbox 2, Valari. Make sure you check the description for the link. You get 15% off when you use our code XB2. And we have anything else you want to say before we get out here, Jez? Any thoughts percolating around that head?
Have a really great weekend, I guess, and see you around.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're offended about me saying to watch the show and it wasn't what you expected.
Oh, please. Nope, nobody's offended. But yeah. We'll be back next week for another Xbox 2. Sword Dance with $5 super chat at the very end saying love you, Jez. See? People love you, Jez. Nobody's upset about everything.
Bless you.
So we'll be back next week
for
another Xbox 2 episode. Hope you guys have a great weekend. It's kind of getting cold here in Chicago. And we only had 2 trick-or-treaters, by the way, Jez. 2. We had 2 trick-or-treaters. I bought 5 bags of candy,
How cold it was?
and we got 2 trick-or-treaters. So there's like a bunch of extra candy. So I broke my diet for a day and had some Reese's cups so I could get back on. But either way, hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend, and we will see you back here on Friday for another episode. Later, guys.
Laters.